in the search for speed. And today, the reward for finding that speed is $1 million. Here's Gary Gerald.
Bob, we remember back at the end of July, a 500-mile race at Michigan, and the adventure it turned out to be. It was spectacular. The first time the Hanford device, that appendage on the rear wing, trying to slow these cars down, but it gives these drivers a great drafting opportunity. We saw 62 official lead changes, countless others during the course of the race. We expect more of that here today. Many observers said that that particular race was the best, greatest open-wheel 500-mile event in modern times.
Here comes Jimmy Vasser. Michael Andretti watches from behind. Zanardi attacking for third. Make that second. Look at Jimmy coming. Here comes Zanardi.
You think that race was competitive at Michigan? There's a chance this race could be even more so. Now remember, the California Speedway is a carbon copy of Michigan, with the exception of 4 degrees less bank in the corners themselves. Now the top 24 cars in Michigan, 1.3 seconds apart. Here, the top 24, only 0.8. Hang on to your hat, it's gonna be wild.
What would you do for $1 million? Would you strap yourself into a kart champ car and lap the California Speedway for 3 hours at 230 miles an hour? Welcome to the final event of the 1998 FedEx Championship Series season, the 500. Hello again, everybody. I'm Bob Barsha. You cannot measure the tension and intensity here at this great racetrack with so many stories about to unfold, not the least of which is a $1 million purse for the winner. Now, while one driver will win $1 million for about 3 hours of work, another driver will take home $500,000 for a full season of effort. Take a look at the points coming in. We have a 3-driver battle for the runner-up position in the championship and $500,000. Dario Franchitti, Jimmy Vasser, and Adrian Fernandez will decide that position between them today. No question about it. 500 miles on one of the fastest tracks in the world. As Jan Bika said, it's going to be wild.
Tommy, this has been an exciting season, but one of the biggest surprises for me was Adrian Fernandez. Now, he had been a winner in the past, but he had never really been thought of as a championship contender. He wins at Montague, he wins at Mid-Ohio, he gets the pole at Michigan. But the biggest surprise for me, of course, is the fact that right now, today, he is here to possibly clinch second in the championship, and he's proved that he is a championship contender.
I certainly can't argue with that. To say that Dario Franchitti had a breakthrough year is not much of a revelation. But for me, the defining moment going forward isn't even captured much in a highlight. Dario Franchitti at Houston, terrible conditions. But more importantly, Alex Zanardi, who has owned this series, whether guys want to admit it or not, he knew if it was his day, no one could beat him. Dario took everything he could throw at him, and he knows going into 99, he's the guy. If he does his program, no one can beat him.
Thanks, guys. No question about it. We're going to be talking about all of the great stories as the day goes on. Right now, here is one, Scott Pruitt, who will start from pole, looking for his second 500-mile race win. He will start alongside the 1996 champion and a former $1 million 500-mile winner, Jimmy Vasser. On row 2, Michael Andretti, a 2-time 500-mile race winner, will start next to Richie Hearn. On row 3, Bobby Rahal makes his final start in his illustrious career alongside Mauricio Gugelmin. On row 4 will be Englishman Mark Blundell, the defending champion here at California Speedway. He'll be next to Dario Franchitti. Greg Moore and Gilles de Ferran will be on row 5. On row 6, Christian Fittipaldi and Paul Tracy. On row 7, look for Al Unser Jr. and Patrick Carpentier. On row 8, Alex Barron, the best starting position of his career, and Helio Castroneves. Row 9 will be Brian Herta, and Alex Zanardi as the champion bids farewell. Row 10, Andre Ribeiro and J.J. Leto. On row 11, Arndt Meyer will start next to Robbie Gordon. On row 12, Tony Kanaan, the Rookie of the Year winner for 98, with Max Pappas. On row 13, Michel Jourdain Jr. from Mexico and Vincenzo Sospiri in his first 500-mile effort. And on row 14, Adrian Fernandez and Dennis Vitolo. There is Bobby Rahal. He is very much the man of the hour. He is the subject of our first Toyota Spotlight of the day. The final day as a racing driver for the three-time kart champion. It began at the hotel at 6:45 a.m. with wife Debbie and their 4 children. Part of a huge coterie of Rahal fans here for his final suiting up as a driver in the kart championship. When he looks back on his career, here's what Bobby will see. 17 glittering seasons, 3 kart championships. Only Rick Mears has done that other than Bobby Rahal. And in 1/3 of his 264 career starts, Bobby Rahal has found himself on the podium at the end of the day. What might be going through the mind of Bobby Rahal as he gets set for his final green flag? To Gary Gerald.
Bob, one other very significant story we need to touch on here today. Because of an incident involving Paul Tracy and Michael Andretti in the last race at Australia, Chief Steward Wally Dallenbach has come down on very hard on Tracy. In fact, has suspended him from competing in the season opening event next March in Miami, Florida. He was cited for blocking, for unsportsmanlike conduct, and for taking unjustifiable risk. It's something we'll be talking more about in the body of the telecast later today. Unprecedented action by a kart official. Jan Beekes?
Gary, think about Greg Moore. Of course, he won the race at Michigan this year. He was leading here last year when his engine blew up with 10 laps to go. He's also been the fastest man at practice at over 240 miles an hour, but he only qualified 9th. We asked him, is there a problem? He said with a big smile, no, my car is great. I'm going to the front. Bob?
All right, thank you very much, Jan Beekes. Looking down on the California Speedway. The infield completely sold out. More than 106,000 fans on hand, making this the second largest single-day sporting event in California history, second only to the NASCAR Winston Cup event right here at the California Speedway. There is Bobby Rahal with the signatures of hundreds of his supporters on the side pods of his car as he brings it up to speed for his final green flag. Scott Pruitt is on pole. The field is lined up side by side. Jim Swintel holds the green flag, waves it. We're underway. 500 miles for $1 million. And immediately the field is spread all the way across the 75-foot width of the racetrack. Onto the backstretch, the fastest part of this 2-mile oval. Speeds of over 240 miles an hour entering turn 3.
And just what we've seen at Michigan, they are not waiting for the 500 miles. They're racing right away, and Michael Andretti wants to be in the lead.
As always, Michael Andretti going for it. With Jimmy Vasser up high, Andretti tucks into second place.
Vasser was having none of that. He got a good slingshot. Michael got a slingshot on both he and Pruitt, but Vasser stayed up on the high side and was able to muscle back to the front.
A look back from Jimmy Vasser's car. He'll be back with Target Chip Ganassi Racing next year. The line snaking down the backstretch as drivers look for that sweet spot in the air. When the field is fully up to speed, they will probably go right at qualifying pace because these cars go so much quicker in groups than they do alone. Andretti bids for the lead. Wheel to wheel into turn 1, and then Andretti moves by to take the lead on lap 2.
Tommy, we're seeing what we saw at Michigan. They get that slingshot, it pulls them up, throws them past. Looks like the other driver that gets past drops way back. But that's just because he lost the draft. He's got to gain it back.
I think also right there, you know, this, because there's 4 degrees less bank, some of the guys aren't quite as sure early on about running side by side. I think Jimmy backed out a little bit there, and you'll see him coming back on. It's going to be a slingshot back and forth. As soon as someone goes by, it's like someone reaches out and grabs their car and pulls them back.
They also told me that even though it's stated that it's 4 degrees less banking, At Michigan, because of all the paving that they've done, they're actually only about 0.5 difference in the banking just because of the years of paving. It's helped level it out.
Here's a look at Gilles de Ferran in the Valvoline Cummins Reynard with Honda power and Goodyear tires for Walker Racing. He'll have a new teammate in the 1999 season. Jimmy Vasser leads Michael Andretti up front.
I think Jimmy's run yesterday in qualifying was a real sign of how he's taking this. He out-qualified Zanardi handily, and the car looked like it was absolutely on rails of the cars we saw in car. And Michael, you know how Michael runs. Michael runs 11/10ths all the time, 500 mile or qualifying. Jimmy is a little steadier. For him to run this strong early, I think it's significant.
You ride with the pole sitter Scott Pruitt, currently in 4th, behind Vasser, Andretti, and de Ferran. Slight lift there. And there is Robbie Gordon, who is on the charge, currently up into 9th place. Greg Moore down low. Moore, winner of the other 500-mile race this year, that incredible run at Michigan Speedway.
If you need any proof that Toyota's making progress, there it is. This is the one track where last year I think the guys were dreading coming here. They weren't even that excited coming this year, but Robbie Gordon obviously hasn't heard that. He's going to the front.
And Greg Moore, though, just slips back underneath him. That just shows what they're getting from this draft. We are going to see this all day long. Now, the two guys that are running up at the front, Michael Andretti and Jimmy Vasser, have two different agendas. Michael Andretti has not had a great year. Won, of course, the first race. Jimmy Vasser has a chance at 2nd in the championship.
On board the Budweiser car, the Swift for Della Penna Racing, and Richie Hearn. Look at those speeds, 220, 223. So he is being caught from behind by Greg Moore. There is Gilles de Ferran, currently in 3rd. Jan Bikus.
Yes, of course, he made a great run from 10th to 3rd, Bob. But now that he's settled in, they said, good, that was a great move. Now we want you to do is save some fuel. There's a yellow on the track, Bob.
There's an incident up in turn 3 and 4.
Andre Ribeiro gotten in hard in the backwards in turn 3.
A big puff of black smoke from that corner. That was odd. As you see, tremendous damage to the car. Kart safety team on the scene.
And see, they'll rush out there. Now they're putting that oil dry down with the guy with the bucket at the back of the screen right there. He is trying to keep this fluid from getting on the track because it'll take him some time to clean that up. And this, if the rumors are true, this could be the last race for Andre Ribeiro at Team Penske.
That's right. The rumors say Team Penske might be a one-car effort for Al Unser Jr. next year. Andre Ribeiro went so far as to change his helmet colors, hoping to change his luck here at the California Speedway. Obviously, it didn't work. We'll take a break and be back live. 500, an aerial view of the accident scene. Andre Ribeiro has brought out our first yellow of the day. Our aerial pictures through the day will come courtesy of the Goodyear Blimp Eagle, based in Carson, California. Goodyear recently increased its blimp fleet to 6, adding 2 airships in Europe and 1 in South America. This Toyota Spotlight is a preview of the 1999 FedEx Championship Series season. Better pay attention because the faces of kart are changing for next year. The most recent announcement came at Archiero Wells, who revealed that Pioneer sponsorship will be on a Toyota-powered Reynard for new driver Scott Pruitt. His teammate will be 1998 PPG Dayton Indy Lights champion Cristiano D'Amata, a partnership Pruitt looks forward to.
It's going to be awful exciting for me, but also a little different from the standpoint that, you know, being that he's just getting involved with the series, just getting involved with kart and with the car, I feel that there is a certain amount that I can hopefully teach him.
Teaching will also be taking place at Target Chip Ganassi Racing as FIA Formula 3000 champion Juan Pablo Montoya takes over for Alex Zanardi next year. Other changes next year, Bobby Rahal, of course, retires. A number of drivers swapping teams. 2 new cars will be added to the roster at each round of the Kart FedEx Championship Series in 1999. And it all should make for an even more exciting season.
And one of those drivers, of course, Juan Pablo Montoya, as Bob just mentioned, standing here. He has the headset on. He's listening into the radio conversations for the Target team. We're just talking with Rob Hill. What are you trying to accomplish here? Just become familiar with their system?
Yeah, everything, to understand how the pit works and everything, because in Europe, you know, first I never worked with pit stops before, so to understand how everything works, you know, in Europe they never close the pits or anything like it, so I wanted to understand everything, how everything's going to work.
It's amazing all of the elements that come together in a 500-mile race, because this pit crew obviously going to be tested 6-7 times, and you're going to be the guy in that seat come next year.
Yeah, it'd be fun. You know, they do always a great job, man. I'm sure next year will be the same.
I know he's excited. We're excited to watch him. Wish you well next year.
Thank you.
Juan Pablo Montoya.
All right, thank you, Gary. There is the man he replaces, back-to-back champion Alex Zanardi. Margie Eatwell has the Toyota Solara safety car on the track in PPG colors. There is our running order. After the break, we'll be back to the California Speedway. We're in California, but on Sunday, November 8th, the NASCAR Winston Cup season 50th anniversary comes to a conclusion at the Napa 500. From Atlanta Motor Speedway, check it out on ESPN beginning at 12:40 p.m. Eastern Time, 9:40 a.m. Pacific. Now there is Paul Tracy as we continue under yellow. Andre Ribeiro is in the medical center, reported to be alert, awake. Everything appears to be fine for the Penske driver. As we mentioned earlier, Paul Tracy has been set down. He will not be allowed to compete in the season opening race at Homestead, Florida next year. As a result of altercations earlier this year, we talked to him all about it.
Well, I'm thinking about this race, and we've got 5 months to iron that out. Obviously, we have some telemetry that says different. We're going to talk about that with Wally and the people from CART. So, you know, we've got a long time to work it out.
Okay, in Australia, when we called this incident, we were saying we don't know what Michael Andretti was upset about. On closer review, I have to say we blew it big time. Watch here. You see the white line. Watch this white line and watch how close they are to the wall when the move starts. Watch where they are when it ends up. He pulls out to the left. Paul moves at least a car width, maybe more. When they finally hit, they're going about 170 miles an hour. If Michael doesn't back off, he could take off, end up over the grandstands here. Danny, you talked to Wally. What was some of his rationale?
Well, Wally Dallenbach said a couple of things. Paul Tracy, first of all, has had 10 sort of misdemeanors this weekend, contacts, not all of them his fault. He's had fines, probation. He's been set out of a practice. But the rule states, because of the blocking, what they all came up with is they are allowed one move. And Paul Tracy moved to the position that we just saw on the screen. When he moved the second time over that white line, that was the offense. You're only allowed one. The second move is the offense.
Let me correct one small thing there, Danny. It was 10 events over the season in 18 races, not 10 this weekend. As Kenny Mayne likes to say on SportsCenter, that would be a record.
Now, I understand the rule that it is one move. Me personally, maybe I'm a hard line, but when you're going 190 miles an hour, if it's a move that's in reaction to a move from the guy behind, I don't even think you get one move. I'm all for if you pull to the inside before the guy goes. I understand that's the rule they're in, but blocking, in my mind, has no place in this business.
I agree with you, Tommy, but that is the rule that all the drivers came up with. That's what they want to stick with.
The cleanup nearly done in turn 3. We'll be back looking for a green flag in a moment.
California Speedway, where the good news is that Andre Ribeiro is fine, but what happened?
I don't know yet. At the end of the back straight, when I was preparing to go into the corner, I lost completely the rear. I can tell what was the cause, what was the reason, but it's a shame. At that point, the car was showing some good progress, and but I'm happy that I'm okay.
Now, there was a report from your team that they were told by CART that you might have had some smoke at the back of the car. Did they have time to tell you that?
No, I think it was too quick. Again, I don't know the reason yet. We will sit down and we'll analyze all the data, and we'll find out what happened.
Will we see you back with Penske next year?
I hope so. We are working hard on this, but all the decisions are with Roger.
All right. Thank you, Andre.
Thank you.
8th DNF of the year for Andre Ribeiro. As you look down from our Honda Helicam at Jimmy Vasser, the race leader for the 7th time this year, but the first since our previous visit to a super speedway at Michigan earlier this summer. Tucked up right behind the Toyota Solara. Cleanup appears to be complete. That's the view from the pace car in the hands of former midget racer Margie Eatwell from Phoenix, Arizona. She'll be handling those chores throughout the day. Let's take a look at our field rundown now as we prepare to go green after our first caution of the day. Jimmy Vasser up front, Michael Andretti, a good run to second place thus far. Bobby Rahal in his final drive finds himself in 7th spot, followed by Greg Moore, who got around Robbie Gordon, who's come all the way from 22nd at the start to run 9th at this moment. Mark Blundell, the defending race champion here at the California Speedway, runs in 10th place. Al Unser Jr., Andre Ribeiro's teammate, in the number 13 spot, and Alex Zanardi has dropped back to 15th. Christian Fittipaldi is 16th. Tony Kanaan, the new Rookie of the Year, 17th. And Alex Barron. Brian Herta, surprised to see him back in P19. Adrian Fernandez working his way forward from the last row after both he and Dennis Vitolo were unable to complete their qualifying attempts. Chief Steward Wally Dallenbach allowed them to start at the back of the field. We are told the green flag is coming here at the California Speedway. We'll be back. Welcome back to the 500. Bob Varsha along with Danny Sullivan, Tommy Kendall, Gary Gerald, and Jan Bikas with you. There is Alex Zanardi in his final appearance in the Kart FedEx Championship after 3 years and 2 championships. The current points on the left. Look at the gap from Zanardi back to his teammate Jimmy Vasser. Now, the former record for championship margin of victory was set by Al Unser Jr., 47 points. Alex Zanardi will shatter that mark this year, no matter what happens today, along with a number of other records, including 14 podium finishes in the 18 races run to date this season. If he wins today's race, he will tie the Kart Series record for victories in a season with his 8th. Now, during the yellow flag, Richie Hearn, Michel Jourdain Jr., Max Pappas, Dennis Vitolo, Vincenzo Sospiri, and Elio Castroneves all pitted. Castroneves twice with a handling problem, but we are ready to go green, and Jimmy Vasser brings the field back under the green flag.
You wonder why everybody's not bunched together there at the restart. Remember, the guys at the front dictate the field. They get to go the minute those lights go out on that pace car. Any place down the back, they try to pick a spot and snooker the guy behind them.
Looking at the suspension of Michael Andretti's Swift chassis, aerodynamically tuned suspension parts to cut the smallest hole possible in the air. Looking back from Jimmy Vasser's leading car now, every little opening in these cars has been taped or plated over.
Now watch Michael, when they head into the corner, he tries to offset his car about a half a car with it to at least get fresh air over half the car. Danny, is that kind of thing high or low? You want to at least have some in the clear air?
That is right, particularly the way your car's handling. He wants to have a little bit out there so you get that fresh air over, nice and clean, give you the maximum downforce. You can see he's offset there a little bit. He went down actually one wheel below the white line.
Danny, it was interesting during the yellow, Michael Andretti talking on the radio with his crew chief Ed Nathman, and one of his concerns was straightaway horsepower versus Jimmy Vasser. He feels that Vasser's got the advantage on the straightaway right now. I don't know if that relates to setup or to gearing, but the crew was quick to assure him, don't worry about it, we can handle that in the later stages of the race.
Gary, that's very interesting, but one thing, it's very difficult to judge when you're getting that kind of a tow from the car in front of you. He could only relate to that maybe when Vasser and him were side by side going down the straightaway. And what's interesting is the Ford Cosworth, by all drivers' account, is supposed to have more power at the top end than any of the other engines.
The other thing you don't know, mixture-wise, there's so many variables in there, it's hard to judge. You did qualify it saying right now, and that's a good thing to monitor as the race goes on.
These cars set up for absolute top speed and for turning left. The steering slowed down from what they would normally have on a road course or a street circuit. Look at Scott Pruitt, still shown in 4th place. Jan Bikas.
Checking in with the Visteon crew, they say that Scott Pruitt does not have a problem. In fact, he is running this race exactly how he wants to. He's done this since 1995. It's a technique to drop back, run in the draft, save some fuel, and save the car for the end of the race. Otherwise, they're very happy.
7 or 8 pit stops expected, roughly one every 35 laps, and on each lap of this 2-mile track, nearly 30,000 individual spark plug sparks and squirts of fuel through the injectors. Nearly 7,500 crankshaft rotations per lap. Absolutely astonishing engines.
That was a word from Bobby's crew saying, stay with Greg Moore, he'll take us to the front. That means he'll pull you along, get in that draft. Greg Moore just passed him, Bobby Rail going into turn 1 to take over that position.
Back up front now, Vasser and Andretti. Vasser on the left in red, continuing to rack up miles in the lead for Target Chip Ganassi Racing, as they've had another banner year, earning $25 per lap led for the St. Jude Children's Hospital in Memphis, Tennessee. This final race of the season, they will have a record donation toward the construction of the Target House for families of children being treated at that facility.
And what we're seeing, too, is Jimmy Vasser standing out front. Michael can't get by him. They're a little bit in the line, but what it is doing, it is pulling everybody up behind them. Gilles de Ferran, Scott Pruitt, Big Mo Gugelmin, and Franchitti. Everybody's kind of getting in that line. You see how they're all starting to string together.
Blasting past your favorite place to stand behind the fence and watch them go by, Tommy Kendall.
That's right. Right up there on the outside of turn 3 or 4. You don't want to do it for very long, but it is absolutely terrifying. New leader for Michael Andretti was able to get a slingshot, drop low through the, I don't even know if you call it the tri-oval.
He is not even the fastest car on the racetrack, as you saw that golden carrot and number 1 next to Greg Moore, who was faster than Michael that last time around.
And of course, what goes on in the cockpit right now is the fuel load lightens. Tires come in, everything starts settling. Everybody's car will start handling a little bit different. And Tommy, a very good point that you made. Although fuel is not an issue here in terms of mileage, it depends on where they decide to run that fuel mixture.
Jan Bikas.
And when you're talking about fuel, I just asked Derek Walker, how much fuel do you save when you're in the draft? And he says, well, if you run 2 miles per gallon and you get in the draft, then you can run like 2.2 to 2.3. And like you say, if you can stretch that fuel, maybe you can make this race on one less pit stop. That would be a huge advantage.
Well, that's right, because the stints are between 35 and 41 laps. If you're running at 225 miles an hour by yourself, you're going to do about 2 miles to the gallon. In the draft, it'll be about 2.2 miles to the gallon.
On board with Gilles de Ferran in 3rd place. You see the gap as it ebbs and flows to the leader. Michael Andretti out front. Jimmy Vasser on the left, de Ferran on the right.
It's a real contrast to qualifying. We kind of knew it would be true, but you heard how early Gilles de Ferran rolled out of the throttle when he had that draft. I think that's why we're not seeing the wholesale shuffling. Mid-corner, for whatever reason, the guys are not able to go as easy flat out through the center of the corner, and they're not able to run as close to the car in front of them.
Gilles de Ferran wearing familiar colors. He has had a tough season, running a solo effort for Walker Racing in the Valvoline Cummins car. Running very close to the points lead early in the year. He comes into this race back in 12th after a long string of troubles. And speaking of troubles, how about the race leader Michael Andretti, 2nd in the series this year in laps led, 2nd only to Alex Zanardi. But Alex Zanardi clinched the championship 3 or 4 races ago. Michael Andretti comes into this weekend in 7th after another string of misery. Looking back, that's Scott Pruitt reporting the car's getting looser and looser.
Looser and looser. That means for everybody that's out there listening that the car is going, the back end is starting to slide, trying to get away. That's okay in qualifying, but that's not what you want in race condition.
Mario Franchitti has already gone by. Greg Moore now pulling up behind Scott Pruitt. Our pole sitter has a definite problem. Moore down low.
And Greg Moore has been marching right through this field. He's passed Bobby Rahal and Big Mo Gugelmin the last couple of laps. He's on the march to the front. He said his car was great. Look at him. He's diving down on the inside of Scott Pruitt going in to turn 3 and 4.
And guys, when we talked at the beginning of the show about how happy Greg Moore was, that's because he said they worked the whole weekend on a race setup. They did not get lured into trying to make their car fast in qualifying. He had a huge smile, a big confident grin saying, I know my car is good. It's perfect for the race.
Mauricio Gugelmin goes around the slowing Scott Pruitt. Gugelmin now 6th, Pruitt 7th.
And that is not something that Scott Pruitt, he's worried about it right now, but that is not something that Scott Pruitt will have to worry about all day. When they come in and make that pit stop, they'll adjust the car, take a little bit of front wing out of the car, and get his balance back.
You know what this reminds me of, Dan, and you can comment on this better than anyone. This reminds me of the way Rick Mears would run a 500-mile. Blisteringly fast in qualifying, sometimes falling back, but rather than trying to carry the car, he knows he's just patient, waits for it. If there's a guy out here other than Bobby Rahal who knows how to run a 500-miler, I'd have to say it's Scott Pruitt.
You've got a good call right
Scott
there.
Pruitt, the reason that he's slowing down, guys, is the car has gone very loose. All of a sudden, the back end of the car wants to step out on Scott Pruitt. He has called for 2 turns less of front wing next time in.
And there's action in the pit lane. Al Unser Jr. has brought the Marlboro Penske Mercedes pit side on lap number 33. There is Al Jr., the winningest 500-mile driver in the race today with 3 victories.
And those guys aren't jumping around the car. They've got a problem And if there was a frantic action going on, then they'd be fixing to get me back out. This is not the way you want your mechanics to be acting at this stage. You saw somebody raise his hand right there, go, don't know what it is.
Notice something else. Every man over the wall is wearing head protection, a la Formula One. And along those lines, congratulations to Mika Hakkinen and the McLaren team on their Formula One World Championship. We'll be back. Welcome back to the California Speedway. Allenzer Jr. down on the apron.
He's definitely got a problem. He's slowed coming down the front straightaway, pulled right down on the apron, out of the racing line. I think he's just going to limp back to the pits.
Boy, what a year for Penske Racing. Stuck on 99 victories, still by far the most successful team in Kart FedEx Championship Series history. They have been at 99 victories and counting for a long time. Now there is Greg Moore, who has been absolutely rocketing around this racetrack. He is up into second place, and he is easily the quickest man out there lap after lap. Keep in mind, in yesterday's morning practice, Greg Moore lapped the California Speedway in traffic at 240 miles an hour in average speed. After he qualified back in the number 9 spot, he said, I haven't got a problem with that. I know I've got a race car that can win this 500-miler.
Look at him hunt Michael Andretti down. About a half a second a lap, which on this track translates into big speed. 2.5 miles an hour there. Actually 1.7. My math's a little rusty.
Better than an excellent economics major.
On that lap, the math is 1.7. But a couple laps previous, he was 6 miles an hour faster than Michael.
And one thing, talking about the handling, we talked about Pruitt. When we were on board with Michael, you can tell Scott was really babying the steering wheel. Not a lot of steering input when the car was loose. Michael had the opposite problem. It looked like mid-corner, especially when he was behind Jimmy, a lot more steering lock. A push is a lot easier to work with. They're both not optimal, but it's a little bit easier to live with.
On board now with Michael Andretti, leading a race for the 9th time this year. 5 of those race leads came on ovals, and several of them he dominated. Jourdain over Michael's right shoulder as he looks at us.
I look at Michael Andretti and I say, wow, he could really build up an edge in traffic. But then I look at Greg Moore, and there aren't many guys braver than Greg Moore. So I think that's about even on that call.
Well, Greg Moore knows he's got a very fast car. We just heard Ed Nathman on the radio say, Michael, pit. He wants to get him in at this stage. Obviously, they'll make a change to that car.
He's right behind you.
And pit stops are beginning on lap 41. Dario Franchitti is in the pit lane. Michael expected this time by.
Do you want any adjustment?
Now watch Michael to see if... Now Moore doesn't know he's pitting. Watch Moore to see if he's trapped in there below the Toyota. They might have told him that Michael was pitting. That could have been... Yeah, he had to back off.
That Toyota really pinched Greg Moore down there. They really held him down tight.
Michael, the only other car in the pits. Dario Franchitti back out to Gary Gerald.
Right around the corner from Ed Nathman, who's up on the wall. We'll listen to him on the radio as he instructs Michael Andretti, and here he is.
No adjustment, reset the fuel.
His pit crews will be tested 6-7 times today if all goes well.
Hold it, watch Cam, go.
11.8 on my clock.
Jimmy Vasser heads for the pit lane, and because of the speeds involved here at the California Speedway, the pit arrangement has changed slightly. The pits have been spread out, taking advantage of this long pit lane. How should I say this? Every other pit is empty to give each driver maximum room to get in and out safely.
Of course, that helps the teams and the drivers, but it sure hurts our pit announcers who have to cover all that area.
Recall Australia, 12 seconds flat for Jimmy Vasser. The Target Ganassi team, as you watch Greg Moore coming in, got Alex Zanardi out ahead of Dario Franchitti in Australia, basically to win the race. I asked them how they do it. He said it's all down to the driver. If he hits his mark, we can get him out quickly. Jan Bikas.
And Greg Moore is in for his service. He has asked for no changes. Boy, that was fast on the tires. That was about 8.5 seconds, and it took him a little while to get into gear, but that was 12 seconds flat for Greg Moore.
And you see the reason that they changed the pits. As Moore came out at top revs, Scott Pruitt was able to slot right into his pit without a problem.
Greg Moore, of course, standing on the throttle. He did not want to stall it. He wanted to keep those revs up. That thing is hot. It'll continue to be that way all day long. He's got to be careful, though. You do too much of that, and you can burn your clutch down.
And Danny, it almost seemed as though when Greg Moore pulled away, there was a slight hesitation. And the reason that he lit the tires up as much as he did, everyone is saying it's very, very slippery here on pit road.
In the old days, it used to be 6 or 7 cars would finish these races. You had to baby the cars a little more. The cars have they run a pretty tough pace, and so now it's much more critical. They're not as worried about the half shafts, things like that. You mentioned the clutch, but these cars are getting more and more bulletproof.
Horacio Guzman took a brief spin in the lead, but he too now makes his pit stop as our Omega timing screens continue to shuffle. Mark Blundell pitting the other Pacos car, the defending race champion. Patrick Carpentier also coming in as you watch his teammate Greg Moore bearing the number 99, made famous by fellow Canadian Wayne Gretzky and his player's Forsyth Mercedes Reynard on Firestone tires. What a year for Firestone. Goodyear picked up victory in the season opener at Homestead. Since then, it's been a Firehawk kind of year.
Alex Zanardi made his stop during this scramble, and we were watching with great interest because they made mega changes up on front. He told the crew that he wanted much less downforce, so it looked like they were just twisting almost forever, it seemed like, on the front wings before they let him go in 12.5 seconds.
All right, thank you, Gary. Stops continuing to shuffle the field as you watch Greg Moore coming forward. Look at the fast laps of the day thus far and how dominant Greg Moore has been. We said he was flying the 4 fastest laps and 5 of the top 10. 234.4 miles an hour, covering more than a football field with each second that ticks off the clock.
Tell you what, in that graphic, we haven't said a lot about Dario Franchitti, his first visit to California Speedway in a battle with Jimmy Vasser, and showing he's just not going to lie down and take this one without a fight.
That's right. Franchitti was driving for Carl Hogan last year, but he had announced that he had signed for Team Cool Green. Hogan took him out of the car. Let's get down to Jan Bikas.
Well, when Tommy Kendall was talking about babying the car, already we have a car here on pit road with gearbox trouble. That's Patrick Carpentier. He cannot select a gear to be able to leave the pits. They're trying to see if they can fix it and get him back underway.
You can already see on that picture the buildup of oil and so forth that's on the mirror there, on that white mirror that's out there on the track. All the stuff coming from the cars in front of you. It tends to get very dirty out there. That's why they have the tear-offs. They're up on the visor on him, right up in there. Those are little plastic covers over your shield. And this is a very clean place, so you can imagine how dirty it is.
You also saw Patrick Carpentier kind of giving his fingers a little stretch. I can imagine. I think I'd be doing a lot of white knuckling out there, but you have to tell yourself, loosen your grip on the steering wheel, because after about the first 30, 40 laps, you don't realize that you've got a death grip on the wheel, and you'll wear out.
Well, that happens, but don't forget, you breathe them on the straightaways there, and if your car's handling good, you got a light hand.
On board with the race leader, Richie Hearn. He pitted under the caution earlier, so he is out front, followed by Castroneves and Moore. We'll be back in just a moment.
86, his primary car with the suspension failure. Most teams would have hoped the spare car was enough to get him through the weekend. Not our Sierra Wells. With a military-like operation at the team's base in Southern California and Vancouver, coordinated by cell phone and email, this FedEx Champ Car team practiced what they preached and FedExed an entire tub and bodywork to Vancouver. I would have given anything to see the look on that service agent's face when they came in and asked for a full-size FedEx Champ Car tube. I hate to admit it, but FedEx is making it look more and more like Danny, Bob, and I are not the only ones that work hard on Sundays.
All right, TK.
You know what? He looked a lot like the guy that made a delivery at my house the other day.
Wonder if it came in a letter, a pack, or a box.
I've been taking work any way I can get it, Danny.
Your new race leader is in the blue and white players car for Jerry Forsyth and Forsyth Racing. That is Greg Moore running behind the newly crowned Rookie of the Year, winner of the Jim Truman Award, Tony Kanaan. Brian Herta down low in the shell car for Team Rahal.
See what you saw what he did there. He wanted to go with Brian Herta. He backed off a little bit. Very smart move there. So which one of you two guys is going to be quicker through the corner? I'll wait and see. I've got the fastest car out here, and I'm not worried about it.
Amazing to see Brian Herta and Tony Kanaan getting lapped this early in this 500-mile race. 11th race lead of the year for Greg Moore. That ties him with Alex Zanardi for the series high. Kanaan ducks underneath the race leader.
Let's not forget the morning warm-up, too. Tony Kanaan went 232 miles an hour this morning.
He is not at all fazed by the high speeds and the high G-loads on these 11-degree banks in the corner. 3 degrees on the backstretch.
And you saw what happened. He got right there. He pulled up right behind Greg Moore when he passed him. They went into the corner together, and Greg Moore just stretched it right out, and he was pulling away. Look at the gap after the back straightaway in 2 corners.
3.5 to 4 lateral G's in the corners for these drivers, several times on every lap.
You see just that little letting Greg Moore by has allowed, look at the distance Brian Herta has put on Tony Kanaan. Greg Moore's about to pull out on Herta again, but those guys were locked in a battle. Now they're about 400 yards apart.
But he still has to deal with the traffic. You've got to be very careful there. Is that driver going to come down? Because don't forget, the guy who's up there driving that car, he already got pinched a little bit by him when he was trying to get past Michael Andretti for the lead when Michael went into the pits.
That's Alex Barron, former karting star, winner of the Toyota Atlantic Championship last year, driving for Dan Gurney's All-American Racers in the Toyota Eagle. Castrol and Degree.
And look right there, Michael Andretti coming down the inside. He snookered Greg Moore because of the traffic situation.
Once again, Alex Barron holding that low line, and that's going to impede Greg Moore a little bit. He's got to lift.
And when he lifts like that, look at the ground that he's losing right there from that pass all the way back there to Greg Moore, and Greg Moore still hasn't found a way around him.
And one of 2 things is going on there. Either Alex Barron doesn't know he's there, or he's real leery of getting up any higher than that on the racetrack. He doesn't want to hold Greg Moore up, but he also doesn't want to end up in the fence.
Well, Michael Andretti has said that about this racetrack. It looks a lot like Michigan, but it doesn't afford as many different racing lines, so the drivers have to be very careful about getting up too high.
Whatever was the end result was Greg Moore got held up for about a lap and a half, and Michael Andretti went from way behind to quite a bit in front. 9 miles per hour faster that lap is what that cost Greg Moore. Look at Greg Moore come back, though, now.
That was Ed Nathman giving the report, I believe, to Michael Andretti. He knows where Greg Moore is, but Jimmy Vasser is 6 seconds behind.
On board with Michael Andretti. Good look at the back of the car and that Hanford aerodynamic device that was added this year. High drag, low downforce, trying to slow the cars and yet keep them stable enough to race at high speed. Here comes Moore again. Side by side.
Both in clean air. Both have maximum downforce going over the car. Now look, Michael moves right up, tucks back in, going to try to slingshot down, going into 3.
Woo. Keep in mind, this battle taking place at 230 miles an hour. Speed differential on the previous lap. Moore nearly 3 miles an hour quicker.
And a lot of that speed for Greg Moore comes from the aid of being drafted by another car, being pulled along.
Momentum is so important here. Just the slightest lift, maybe 500-600 revs in the corners, and you lose a lot of time on the racetrack.
And also, that was a double-wide draft. Not a double-wide trailer, but a double-wide draft with Michael Andretti and Brian Herta, and you saw what that did for Greg Moore. So it is cumulative. It's not twice as big, but it's 1.5 times maybe as big as the one-car draft.
And Bob, when you're talking about the change in RPM through the corners, think also about the change in RPM in the gearbox. Greg Moore right now is running in top gear or 6th gear. They do that to keep the RPM lower so they can run 500 miles. That means if he wants to go to 5th, that car will be even faster.
The teams work so hard in the wind tunnel and elsewhere to try to trim these cars out for speed. Some of them were considering narrowing the front wheels so as to create an even smaller frontal area when moving down the racetrack. CART mandated a minimum width through the spindle center at the fattest part of the wheel, 77 3/4 inches this year, to prevent them from narrowing the track too much.
And of course, Michael Andretti on Goodyear tires and Greg Moore on Firestone tires, so we have one of each up at the front battling for this lead.
Now, one of the ways technology has come along the tire temps, you saw that 300 degrees in the corner. up until very recently, the best you could do is poke them when you came to a stop. Now they have these infrared sensors that guys run on their cars, point them right at the tread, and they see how much hotter they're actually running in the corners. At first it scared them, then they thought, well, they've been this temp all along, we just didn't know it.
Now you say right here, now why is Greg Moore not just making a run at Michael Andretti? He's running that top gear. I've got a feeling that the team said, hey, don't worry, take it easy. You know you're fast enough. Let's just not get too racy. Sit back there. Let's conserve some energy, some tires, motor, everything. We've got plenty of racing to do. We got 500 miles.
Let's check the interval back to the third place car of Dario Franchitti. That gap now right at 10 seconds. Make that 11 seconds to Dario Franchitti, who's racing with Jimmy Vasser. And remember, that's for second place in the championship. Franchitti leads Vasser with $500,000 at stake. On board with Bobby Rahal, still in 7th place in the number 7 Miller Lite car. You notice all those signatures on the side pods.
4, you can see in the tire pressure. That's the right thing to do.
Fans lined up since early yesterday to make a small donation to Rahal's foundation and sign their names on his race car for this last ride. More than $300,000 have been raised to be distributed to charities at each stop along the FedEx Championship Trail. A fitting departure for a great champion. We'll be back to the 500. Already one of 10 different race leads we've had thus far today.
No adjustments, just 4 tires and fuel.
Ed Nathman talks to Michael on the radio. Gary Gerald awaits him.
This is the first of the second rounds of pit stops, and we're wondering if Michael got a full load of fuel on that stop at lap 43 or 44. He'll be coming in here. We're running on lap 72 right now. He's in.
Michael, reset the fuel meter.
Gary, that seems awful early to me. They're supposed to go about 41 laps.
Okay, go.
10.8 seconds. Everything seemed to be routine. You could hear Nathman calling out the instructions, but I'm wondering if, in fact, it was early, Danny.
Well, if they go 41 laps like they did last time, they should go at least another 35 to 40 laps on the second go.
Well, remember, there was a lot of yellow on that first sequence, though, after that incident against the wall, so that made a difference.
But you also have the 4 times by under pace car at the start of the race, so there's a lot of extra distance.
Okay, well, I guess the proof will be in the pudding, because if not everybody else starts coming in right now, then something was amiss there.
And I'll bet up and down the pit lane, everybody took a close look at their calculators. If the race leader was in, we better make sure we have our fuel numbers down right.
And he certainly didn't seem to slow down on the track. He certainly didn't seem to radio in that he had a problem. They called him in.
Maybe a good comparison. Richie Hearn topped up under that yellow, so did not have the laps under yellow, and ran about 42 laps under green with a Ford engine as well. So I think you're probably right that is something. Either they were thinking they were out of fuel, wanted to double check and be safe, or they have a pickup problem of some sort.
Michael Andretti back on in 12th place. Of the top 15 cars, Michael the only one to have made 2 pit stops to this point. Look at the tire war. Going in Firestone's favor thus far. Greg Moore is back in the lead. Now here's a look at our fuel metering. See where the fuel window is listed, and the top 3 cars in terms of where we see them in their fuel calculation. Dario Franchitti already within his fuel window. We expect him to be the next to stop. Meanwhile, Alex Barron pits for Dan Gurney's All-American Racers team. As you watch Greg Moore down the backstretch, working his way past Elio Castroneves, and Dario Franchitti is in. Franchitti in from second place. That position now goes to Jimmy Vasser. Paul Tracy moves into third. Mauricio Gugelmin fourth. And Bobby Rahal will move into fifth.
Bob, we're watching here as Dario Franchitti gets his service. He and his teammate Paul Tracy are the closest to pit out. Everything looking very smooth. No wing adjustments up front. He's gone. 12.9 seconds.
And a cloud of tire smoke. Dario Franchitti comes back on the track. Now, Al Unser Jr. has gone behind the wall so that it would appear that the home team from Penske Racing is done very early in this final event of the FedEx Championship Series for 1998. Back on board with Bobby Rahal, now officially 5th place. And constantly moving up. Down below him, the defending champion, Mark Blundell, who has been very quick for many of the preceding laps. Blundell now moves into 5th and drops Rahal back to 6th. And on that last lap, Blundell 0.7 of a second quicker than Bobby Rahal. Up front, Greg Moore is simply blistering everyone. His last lap time, 31.1 seconds.
4.
Snaking down the long backstretch through the fastest part of the racetrack into turn 3, where Andre Ribeiro crashed back on lap number 7. On board with Scott Pruitt. In his last race for Patrick Racing, Patrick will run Swift chassis in 1999. Scott Pruitt will be Toyota powered in a Reynard with new Pioneer Electronics sponsorship for Arciero Wells. Jimmy Vasser pits.
Again, watching from the head of the car as Jimmy Vasser gets his second service job of the afternoon. 1, 2, 2.5 turns on the front wing, waiting for the fuel and rolling. There's another 12-second stop.
And more front wing adjustments. The wind has picked up since the beginning of this race. Large flags over Victory Lane now snapping almost at full length. That may be contributing to the need to make adjustments.
Paul Tracy going into the pits now.
And Greg Moore.
Wholesale pit stops, this on lap 81.
Did you see Greg Moore slide it in there and hit it right on the mark? But what a move. And did you see the mechanic? He didn't even flinch, went right around him and got on that right rear tire.
That's right, Danny. The reason is, wow, that was fast. 13-1. Remember, the pits here are concrete and they're very slippery. He came in a little too hot, and that was a nice job of using the brakes for Greg Moore.
I spoke with Dario Franchitti about that very thing, getting in and out of the pits on a super speedway with that transition from the grippy asphalt to the more slippery concrete. Let's take another look.
The interesting thing to me is he locks the rear. The rears also slide. See, it's like he e-brakes it, kind of backs it in like you park a rental car.
Styling. Now the car, of course, the tires are also harder than we see on the road courses for endurance, and the steering is also quite slow, and the cars are set up to turn left, so wrenching it around to the right makes it a particularly tricky proposition. Battling for the lead, the Pac West teammates. Defending champ Mark Blundell goes high around his teammate Mauricio Gugelmin. We haven't had many opportunities to call that pair of numbers this year.
I had to do a double take there, but maybe they do run well on these big speed tracks. There was a party atmosphere watching Mercedes win the Formula One championship. They're all pumped up, the Mercedes guys, the Pac West guys, and they're getting it done.
Well, we know these drivers are both capable of winning. They've just got to have the equipment to do it. They've certainly got the package. They just haven't been able to sort that package out all season long. Looks like they're doing it at the right time. Now, hopefully they can get a good result, which is what Bruce McCall wanted for today. Go away with a good result and come back strong for 1999.
And as you see, they'll be calling in the pit shortly as well. Between them, Mark Blundell and Mauricio Gugelmin drove for 6 different teams in Formula One over the years. Working lap number 84 of 250 scheduled. That is the first race lead for Mark Blundell this year. Keep in mind, he was a 3-time winner in 1997.
And of course, the third win came right here at Fontana.
Good look across the jam-packed infield here at California Speedway. Stone sold out for this event. The final round of the season. Look at that grandstand. New seats added this year. And those tickets went out the door as well.
You talked about how cool that crew member was when Greg Moore came sliding in. Did you watch that Chip Ganassi pit stop for Jimmy Vasser? You think those guys aren't good? The guy looked like he was on a Sunday stroll out there to adjust the front wings, gave it a couple turns, took a step back, and he went barreling out. Those guys are pretty cool customers.
Guys, another interesting pit stop for the season champion Alex Zanardi, who came in and got routine service. There had been a bit of a controversy. Zanardi wanted them to take downforce out. Morris Nunn, his engineer, had been adamant he wanted downforce added. Morris Nunn won. They added 2 full turns that we could see as Zanardi's back on the circuit.
I wonder if he would have won if Zanardi was staying for next year.
Well, I've heard Zanardi, the advice Alex Zanardi gave to Juan Pablo Montoya was take care of Mo. He's the best engineer in the business. So Alex is probably said, okay, well, yeah, that's what I meant. Add down for us.
New leader as Greg Moore moves to the front once again, working lap number 86. Michael Andretti second. Mauricio Gugelmin with his pit stop drops down the order. We'll be back live to California. And the Loma Linda Children's Hospital also benefited. Many of the drivers and car owners on hand, including Al and Shelley Unzer, who organized the event. Paul Newman, Rick Mears, the kart staff, and of course your announcers in our normal street wear. A great time had by all, and a lot of money raised for charity. Now you heard some excitement in our voices. There's the reason. Arndt Meyer in the Lola for Davis Racing. An enormous engine explosion as he went down into turn 1.
And normally when we have those big engine explosions, we get the smoke, which we had, but he had huge flames coming out of the back as well. Look at the flames come out of the back of that car.
That looks more like John Force.
Yeah.
Using a blower.
Look at that.
Looks like that Australian Air Force flyby we witnessed in Surfers Paradise. Tough break for this modestly budgeted team. They picked up sponsorship help and new ownership from European businessman Andreas Grievski this year, and they're looking forward to new sponsorship next year from the eBay Internet Company. And as the Lola company continues to work wonders with that recalcitrant chassis and make it a factor once again, there could be a bright future for Davis Racing and for German driver Arndt Meyer.
And the rumor has it that Lola is going to be with 3 teams next year, possibly with 4. They've got some commitments, but that has not been announced yet.
Well, you do like to stir the pot, don't you?
Danny?
I got that one right from the horse's mouth.
Well, then spill the beans. Who are they?
I was sworn to secrecy.
Well, we know there'll be some more Swift chassis. There are 14 different Swifts being built for as many as 3, possibly 4 teams next year. A lot of folks, frankly, concerned that with the Reynard Company, who have dominated the series for so long, opening a Formula One division next year, it might be a good time to get into someone else's good graces. Here's a program note. Friday night fights coming your way on ESPN2 from the Foxwoods Casino Resort in Ledyard, Connecticut on Friday, November 6th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Vinny Pazienza taking on Arthur Allen in a 10-round super middleweight bout.
Being a third stop, Ed Nathman here. We heard him talking to Michael. Now, did you get out of sequence? Did you have to come early on your second stop?
Yeah, we came early on the second stop. Kind of screwed us up, kind of sequenced a little too much. And he had a little trouble with the handling car, so we decided to bring him in right then and send him out. This stop right now is just to catch up with everybody. Now we're on the same sequence, everybody.
Okay, are you happy with the way the car's working now?
Yeah, now it should be fine. From here on in, it should be fine.
Okay, still got a long way to go. And as we say that, Alex Zanardi comes by our shoulder. He's in for another stop. Topping off with fuel only.
On board with Michael Andretti as we remain under caution. Like many of the drivers, he brought his family along, wife Leslie, Father Mario here, of course. Back out on the racetrack. We'll take a break and return for a green flag. Stay with us. For a look inside the Goodyear blimp and how it maneuvers, try the website at www.goodyear.com. 14 official lead changes here in the 500 thus far. Not exactly on the pace that we thought we would see after that incredible race at the U.S. 500 at Michigan Speedway earlier this year, but there are probably lots of reasons for that, fellas.
Yeah, everybody went home, thought about it again, and thought, what were we doing out there driving like that? But it was a fantastic race. Remember, too, I think a lot of people's attitude here is this is a 500-mile race. Scott Pruitt said at the top of the show, we've got to get through those first 400 miles, and then let's go racing for that last 100. So everybody's finding out what the car is going to do. Let's settle down. There's $1 million at stake to win this thing. Let's not forget that. We don't want to throw it in the fence early on or break the car early on. I want to be there for that last dash to the cash.
I hear you.
Now the yellow flag is waving once again, so we will not get the green flag this time by. As you take a look at the numbers on Greg Moore, a 500-mile winner. He won that race at Michigan. Jan Bikas has more on him.
Well, during this caution flag, they've had the opportunity to talk to Greg Moore on the radio. And what they were telling him is, look, you're running warp speed on the racetrack. You don't have to try and make it up on pit road. They reminded him the last time he came in that he just pushed it a little too late, locked up the brakes. They were very concerned that he might have clipped one of the crew members. Of course, we saw that he did not. So they have warned him. They think they have a lot of speed on the racetrack, telling him no more chances in the pits because this race will be ours if we don't make any mistakes.
All right, thanks, Jan. We are shuffling the order. Tony Kanaan pitted to change the nose on his LCI-sponsored Reynard for Tasman Motorsports Group. Jim Swintal, the starter, was shuffling a couple of the cars. I think Kanaan might have been one of the cars that he told to take a different position in the line than what he had. Now the green flag is in Jim's hand, and we may get the green this time by.
And Bob, quickly, the reason they changed the nose for Kanaan, the front wings were adjusting themselves.
Oh, my. Good reason to come in and do it.
I've had a situation like that where I hate to say it, in Indianapolis, where the adjuster on the right front wing collapsed going through turn 1 in 1988, and it's not a fun feeling.
I was in the grandstands for that one, actually.
Now the field comes up to speed with 8 lapped cars between race leader Greg Moore and second place Dario Franchitti. We're going to try to follow Franchitti as he tries to work his way forward. Of course, right behind him is Jimmy Vasser for that $500,000 that goes to second place in the championship. Getting tires up to speed and getting that spin cycle, turbulence in the air that allows these cars to go faster than they can in clean air.
Mark Blundell has jumped back to the front on the track, but Greg Moore goes right back around him, going through 1.
Now Blundell is in 8th place and a lap down, so Blundell is trying to get himself unlapped. Greg Moore having none of it as they flash down toward 3.
But look at this. Here comes Mark Blundell right by Greg Moore going into 3. Scott Pruitt's around. This is what we saw a lot of at Michigan right here.
And what happened there, Blundell, we saw him leading. When he pitted, he had lost enough track position. He was leading because he gotten, they went a much further than Greg Moore did on fuel, but ended up getting caught just a lap down. Mo Gugelman just barely stayed on the lead lap, got to go all the way around to the back. Now he's trying to get it back.
Jules DeFerrin also in a fight there. DeFerrin in 9th place right now. And you see 2 lines right there in the corners. Greg Moore continues to flash around. His last lap, 234 miles an hour. And Mark Blundell, Scott Pruitt, Gilles DeFerrin, and Bobby Rahal running 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th in a battle of their own. They are all a lap down, but that is for position among themselves.
And of course, back in the pack a little bit is Dario Franchitti, who is in 2nd place, and just a little further behind him is Jimmy Vasser in 3rd, and of course that is a special battle because that's for 2nd place in the championship.
Brief look from Scott Pruitt's cockpit. Scott's annual Celebrity Golf Classic back in September raised some $70,000 for the Make-A-Wish Foundation. On board once again with Scott in the Vistion car. Notice the lack of movement in the steering wheel. Whoa, 3 wide. The tri-oval area across the start-finish line. Not really a tri-oval, a D-shaped oval we call it. Long back straightaway, and then a long curve from turn 3 all the way to the exit from turn 2.
Bob, watch carefully the steering wheel for Scott Pruitt. They say that he has a bit of push, so generally that means you'll see him turn the steering wheel a little bit more than you would do normally. The car was loose early on, and then they ended up taking too much front wing out. Now the car doesn't stick in the front the way he wants.
Let me tell you, it stuck the way he wanted right there. He just dove right down into the front of this pack and pulled away a little bit through turns 1 and 2.
That's kind of thing. I mean, the push, like I said, is not optimal, but if you have, in a long race for qualifying, you've mentioned that the fastest way is a little loose. I wouldn't want to fight a loose car for 500 miles. The push isn't optimal, but you saw he's able to work with it when smoking right around Greg Moore, and now he's hoping for a caution.
Past the 100 lap mark in this 250 lap, 500-mile race, with $1 million waiting in victory lane. On board with Gilles DeFerrin.
Scott Pruitt will use this more one-groove nature to his advantage. He will be very difficult to pass now, fighting to get that lap back.
Looking ahead from DeFerrin's car. DeFerrin in 10th. The car ahead is Blundell, who is 9th. See his progress from the beginning of the race. Slight lift.
That breathing of the engine, that slight lift, really helps the engines live for the 500 miles. They like a little bit of lift in there. If you keep them just revving hard the whole way, like on a dyno, they don't tend to like it for 500 miles.
And Danny, one of the differences between Greg Moore and Scott Pruitt, because Scott Pruitt is trying to get that lap back, they have put it in 5th gear. They say they do have a push, but they're able to make up for it by using higher RPM.
And of course, higher RPM means there's more load on the engine, and it also means using more fuel. Fuel in a 500-mile race is not a critical issue, but it can be when it comes to what time of the day you make your pit stop.
This is one of those things where you pick and choose where you use your bullets. This is one I'm sure Jim McGee's probably saying, this is worth it, worth it. If we can get back on the lead lap, there's only 7 guys on the lead lap right now. If we can stay like this until a yellow comes out, it'll be worth the risk running the car a little bit harder.
Greg Moore, of course, is not really concerned about putting Scott Pruitt a lap down, although I know he'd like to have a lap on him just for safety issues. He's concerned about getting to the 500 miles and making sure his race car is good. He's not going to take any chances. He knows he's got about the quickest car out there right now.
At the front, once again, Greg Moore in blue and white. Behind him, the green and white, is Dario Franchitti running in 2nd spot. Behind them, Jimmy Vasser and Paul Tracy, Franchitti's teammate at Team Cool Green, are also battling over 3rd place.
Now, what you said, Danny, about Greg not being worried about Scott, but weren't there certain guys, like if you knew Rick Mears was a lap down, you'd want to keep him a lap down if he could. Here it is for the lead. Dario Franchitti
shooting up the backstretch into 3, gets under Moore, but Moore keeps his foot in it. Oh, man, that was close.
These guys are very good friends. They travel together. They hang out together. That was close.
They came back from Surfers Paradise, Australia. They had planned a motorcycle trip up to Laguna Seca. It was a bit of a bumpy ride. Mechanical problems along the way for them. Watch the FIA GT cars at Laguna Seca. Franchitti tucked up behind his good buddy Greg Moore.
They were spending so much time together, I think people are starting to think they were dating, but anybody who knows those two know that's not the case.
That rumor started by Tommy Kendall.
That's right.
Mail your letters to him.
I have it confirmed from both that they're not dating each other.
A look back from Pruitt's car once again.
And guys, while they're occupied with Pruitt and Franchitti and, of course, Greg Moore, it looks to me like Jimmy Vasser and Paul Tracy are slowly sneaking up on him. We might keep an eye on them as they try to close in 3rd and 4th positions.
No question about it. The Moore and Franchitti running together. Jimmy Vasser in 3rd place, just 2 seconds behind Franchitti, and Paul Tracy all over the back of the 96 Series champion.
And it looks to me like Greg Moore thought that pass by Franchitti was a little bit closer than he'd like. Maybe I'll go back up here and put Scott Pruitt a lap down and get on with it.
You see Scott Pruitt running a pretty high line off of 2 there. One of those things you want to give the car its head, especially with the push. That's where it's going to show up coming off the corner. But as strong as Greg Moore is, I think he's got a small window. They need a yellow because it's only a matter of time, in my estimation, before Greg Moore goes back around it.
Yeah, and if this pack comes up, if Franchitti moves back up with Greg Moore, and we get the rest of the boys up there for this battle for the lead, they're going to want to get by Scott Pruitt and put him a lap down.
That's going to be tough to do. Pruitt was the quickest car on the racetrack that last lap, as you see Moore back there following him. Moore the race leader. And Scott Pruitt, our pole sitter at the beginning of the day, able to run with him. Pruitt shown in 8th place. Stay with us. In a cloud of engine smoke, Dario Franchitti's season is now over. Down the backstretch, the car suddenly plumed smoke and flame from the left side, much like the Arndt Meyer incident we saw earlier. The Scotsman brought it to a stop and climbed out as his crew at Team Cool Green looks on. They're watching the same pictures you are. A lot of work just went up in smoke. Here's another look. Another thing about 500-mile races, when things like this happen, they happen in a big way. So let's go down to Gary Gerald.
Kim Green, I know that you're never prepared for a moment like that. It must be so disappointing because it looked like you were getting great fuel mileage, good handling, the whole package.
Well, yeah, certainly Dario just radioed in like 2 laps earlier. Hey, guys, the car put a half and a front wing in it for the next stop. no warning on the engine, and it's certainly unusual for Hondas to let go. But we were in a good position today. A bit disappointing. We wanted to finish this race in a good position and hopefully get second place in the championship. Certainly, we have to see what happens to Mr. Vassar now, and the rest of the guys will be sort of rooting for our other driver, Paul Tracy, for the rest of the way.
We'll keep an eye on him. Well, no chance to win $1 million today as the winner of the race. Still $500,000 can be won if he can hang on to second in points.
And whenever anything goes wrong, somebody always benefits from it. Who was it? Scott Pruitt, because he is now back on the leader lap. Although he's at the back of the pack, he's still now on the lead lap.
And he was running laps as quick or quicker than anyone else, so he'll be able to make time and move forward toward the fight. There's another man who benefits. Jimmy Vassar moves into second spot behind race leader Greg Moore. Dario Franchitti, as we mentioned, did not race here at California Speedway last year. One of 3 drivers in this field who were in the series but did not run the race. Franchitti was released by his car owner, Carl Hogan. Robbie Gordon made an appearance for the team in Dario's car. Patrick Carpentier did not race after a crash in practice that left him unconscious, and as a result he was not allowed to start the race. Alex Zanardi crashed twice here last year and did not start the race. His car went to Ari Luyendyk. Pits are now open and cars are in, including race leader Greg Moore, Jimmy Vassar, Paul Tracy, Michael Andretti, and Mauricio Gugelmin.
And let's look to see if Greg Moore takes it more easy on the brakes this time. He certainly does. Much different than the last time he came. And we're going to see if they make any changes on the front wing. So far, I've seen no changes throughout this whole race for Greg Moore. And again, no changes. They drop it off the jack. And again, that was 11.1. But again, it takes him just a moment to get that car in gear.
And this time it was Jimmy Vassar who slid to a stop as he makes his pit stop. Moore goes by. There goes Jimmy Vassar. Andretti.
I think we should also point out that the people that are pitting right now are on the lead lap. The ones that are a lap down have to stay out and wait for this group to finish.
See the cars coming back out onto the track. Mauricio Gugelmin, Jimmy Vassar, Michael Andretti coming back out. At the far end, you see the kart safety team working on the spot where Dario Franchitti's Honda engine let go and dumped some fluids on the racetrack. We'll take this opportunity for a break and be back live to the 500.
His motor scooter after that ride back here to his team, Dario Franchitti. And Dario, we talked with Kim about the disappointment of losing the engine. Did you feel like you had a car that was capable of winning this 500-mile race today?
I don't know, to be honest. I think I could see Greg was fairly fast, but we caught him in traffic. I think my car was really good in traffic. I think Team Cold Green did a wonderful job, having run so badly at Michigan. We were at the back, and we've really worked very hard, and we ran at the front today. Had some pretty interesting moments out there in traffic. So a lot of fun racing with the Hanford wing.
You like it?
I like it. I'm not sure it's entirely safe, but I like it. It's there's some pretty interesting moments, but I'd just like to say thanks to my guys at Team Cold Green and everybody associated with us for a wonderful season. And we really have to sit and see where Jimmy finishes, and that will really decide whether we finish second, third, or wherever in the championship.
And again, we mentioned $500,000 if you can finish second. Let's go back to Michigan now. The difference between running here and at Michigan, because at Michigan we saw more lead changes, 2 and 3 wide more frequently than we're seeing here.
Yeah, I think this is a little bit different. This is more of a one-lane racetrack. You can get 2 abreast, but it's pretty difficult. Really, the only passing is in the draft on the straights into the corners. You're not going to really go around the outside of somebody unless you're it's very, very good. I think that's probably the main difference, but it's still making for some exciting racing out there.
Yes, it is. And next time we see you, we'll be a mile and a half at Homestead, Florida next March. Wish you well.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Gary. Dario Franchitti can now only wait. We'll get back to that battle for second place. Tune in tonight to RPM Tonight on ESPN2 for all the news of the day in racing. The Winston Cup race at Rockingham, of course, the 500 here at the California Speedway. It's all coming your way on the Deuce at 8 p.m. Eastern Time tonight. On the racetrack, now let's take a look at a Toyota Spotlight. Recapping the race, Scott Pruitt starting from pole position. Jimmy Vassar from the number 2 spot blasted into the lead. He was passed shortly thereafter by Michael Andretti in more than a dozen early lead changes. Andre Ribeiro spun on his own and hit the wall violently. He was all right. Meanwhile, Bobby Rahal, with the cheers of the crowd ringing in his ears, has been steady all day. Greg Moore battled for Michael Andretti for the race lead for a time. Then it was Moore against Dario Franchitti before the Scotsman's engine let go, and his season was finished. Now there is Greg Moore, who comes into this final race of the FedEx Championship Series in 5th place in points, without too much hope of moving up, although he could win the race, and that would leave him with a million reasons to feel good as we head into the off season. We'll be back to the 500. All of them tough. You see our race recap. Green race average speed 225 miles an hour. The car's out of the race. Dario Franchitti with a big engine let go. Vincenzo Sospiri will not finish his first 500-miler for Dan Gurney's All-American Racing. Arndt Meyer done with another big engine let go. Dennis Vitolo, Patrick Carpentier, Al Unser Jr., and his teammate Andre Ribeiro, the 2 house cars from Penske Racing, the first 2 cars out of the race.
Now, something that's also happened for everybody out there is they waved Alex Zanardi, Adrian Fernandez, and Robbie Gordon back. They got back to the back of the lead lap because they did not make a pit stop. Interesting, Alex Zanardi pitted on lap 91. It's now lap 120. That's 29 laps that he's gone on fuel, so he's really rolling the dice.
Back under green, and Mauricio Gugelmin may have timed it perfectly. He moves into the lead. He was on the move when the green flag waved, and that is legal. Even if he had passed Greg Moore before the start-finish line, on restarts, when the green is displayed, gentlemen, you have a race.
And it doesn't matter where you are on the track. When that green flag comes out, you can pass.
What happens is your spotter or someone who can see the green calls the green for you, and you can be back. That's when you're back in the pack. That's one of the ways you catch people sleeping. You hear green, 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 and you're going.
Yeah, but where Big Mo was on that restart, he could see the guy drop the green flag.
Jimmy Vasser runs in 3rd place. Now with Dario Franchitti out of the race, Vasser still has to finish in the top 4 places to gain enough points to take 2nd place away from the Scotsman in the championship and pick up a check for $500,000 at tomorrow night's banquet.
And the top 2 cars are running the exact same package: Reynard chassis, Mercedes-Benz engines, and Firestone tires.
What a year it's been for Mercedes-Benz. Jan Bikas, go ahead.
Yes, and on both those cars, for Mauricio Gugelmin and for Greg Moore, on every one of their pit stops, they have still made no changes.
Remarkable considering the number of changes we've seen in the other pit stalls during the day.
And Paul Tracy in the 2nd Cool car has passed Jimmy Vasser for 3rd spot. And interesting, because Jimmy Vasser, when he was running 3rd, was ahead of Dario Franchitti by 2 points in the championship.
This is nose-to-tail 4 position. All of the top cars running in line. Gugelmin, Moore, Tracy, Vasser, Andretti, Pruitt, Hearn.
Here comes Michael back to the front now that he got back in sequence with everybody.
And he moves Jimmy Vasser down 1 more spot, which hurts his chances for 2nd in the championship.
That
puts Franchitti back to the top.
That's right. It moves Jimmy Vasser out of one of those top 4 positions he needs to take 2nd in the FedEx title chase. On board with Michael. Looking out over those shroud-covered upper suspension parts. The lower ones are also shaped, but not covered with those bits of carbon fiber, Kevlar, and metal.
Now, the engineers are the ones that design that, but the marketing people love them. You see the Kmart and the Havilland up there? Just one more billboard.
Once again, we have a yellow flag out, and the problem is J.J. Leto, who has lost the Mercedes-Benz in his Reynard. Hogan Racing is done for 98. Our 4th yellow flag of the day.
Didn't quite get as many style points.
And guess who that yellow helps but Alex Zanardi, because he was right marginal on the fuel. He gets the yellow at the right time. He's going to come in. He's now back on the lead lap. And Fernandez and Robbie Gordon, they get to top up their cars.
J.J. Leto of Finland putting the steering wheel back on. Billy Camphausen, card official, helping him. Billy seems to think J.J. may need a little assistance there. So Leto's season is done. We'll take a break for another green flag. Stand by for more from California. We are under yellow as J.J. Leto's car is getting pulled behind the wall. Now Alex Zanardi pitted. He needed that pit stop. Now there are discussions in the pit. Let's take a look at what happened during that stop. Everything looks normal thus far, but we're hearing there will be a black flag for Alex Zanardi. Car is off the jacks. Oh, they couldn't get the fuel hose undone.
And he pulled
dangerous moment there in the pit.
And he pulled the fueler right down with him as he went out.
Tim Keegan, the fueler for Alex Zanardi. A very scary moment for the two-time and reigning PPG Cup champion.
And that advantage that he had gained from that last gamble looks like it's all going to be thrown away.
Yeah, because the options.
It appears that everyone is all right down in the pits. Tommy, go ahead. We'll take another look at what happened.
Watch up on the top of your screen, right up in there. He's still got the fuel hose in right there.
Oh, and look at the rear wheel.
You distinctly saw the guy wave him. Alex is keying off the guy in front of him. The guy in front of the car distinctly said, go, 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 but they had miscommunicated to him, or he had not seen the fuel hose still attached. All Alex is watching is this one guy or keying on the radio.
He only watches that one guy in case the radio fails. You have to trust that guy. This thing is so tightly choreographed. If they don't pull that thing out in the millisecond, it all goes to a mess.
And people wonder why those guys wear helmets. Part of it's fire, but a lot of it is exactly that kind of a situation.
Car owner Chip Ganassi down there talking with his crewman as well. Looks like we see some smiles down there, and that's a good sign. Gary Gerald?
Yeah, we're right behind that pit with J.J. Lato. Everything appears to be under control. J.J., let's ask you about your first experience of running here at Fontana today. We saw the engine go away, but how comfortable did you feel in your rookie season running a super speedway?
Very comfortable. I like the ovals a lot. I don't know why, but, you know, it's just from the first test we did last winter time, you know, it has been really good, and we have been improving all the time with Tim Hogan, and, you know, the things are looking good, you know, we just keep on having these problems, you know. We can't finish these races, you know, and you know, this is the last race of the season, and hopefully we have a little bit better luck next year. This wasn't one of these $1 million days for me, you know.
Not at all. Thank you so much. We wish you well.
Thank you.
Out ready to go green, Bob?
Green coming up. Thank you, Gary. So the Flying Finn will hop onto his motorcycle and head back home. Season's done for him, but the green flag waves. The crowd comes to its feet again, and Mauricio Gugelmin leads the top 7 cars, nose to tail across the start-finish line, and they fan out immediately in a bid for position. Michael Andretti down low, Paul Tracy up high. Look at that run to second.
And Greg Moore just got snookered by all of them. Paul Tracy was up so high, he's had dust coming up when he entered turn 1.
So Mauricio Gugelmin, who dealt a dose of see you later to Greg Moore on our previous restart, gets a taste of his own medicine. You're on board with Michael Andretti. The order is Tracy, Andretti, Gugelmin. Now recall what happened at Surfers Paradise, Australia, where Michael Andretti and Paul Tracy had their coming together.
But look at this. Greg Moore's coming back. He's moved back up to third. Jimmy Vassar was trying to go with him. Couldn't get by Big Mo.
The black flag went out for Alex Zanardi, and he is back in the pit lane, heading for his stall. And whatever punishment awaits him as we watch the action on the track. Paul Tracy just checking out. Michael Andretti, Greg Moore, Jimmy Vassar, all trying to catch him. Mauricio Gugelmin there as well.
Stop and go. Very quick. He's gone. Steve Goff, the fueler, Bob, for Alex Zanardi, was the man that was knocked over. They've checked him out. He says, I know I'm going to be sore tomorrow. He appears to be okay and will remain in duty, I believe.
Thanks, Gary. Sorry for the misidentification of the fueler, who I believe is looking in the other direction. And crew chief Robin Hill waved Alex Zanardi out.
And, of course, the biggest fan of what's going on right now, Dario Franchitti, Paul Tracy's teammate, because he's looking at this guy staying out in the front and making sure he secures that second place in the championship. And Paul would love to have his first win of this year with $1 million payday. A lot would be forgiven with that little deal.
4th time this year, Paul Tracy has led a FedEx Championship Series race, all of them coming on oval tracks. He is just dead quick.
And look at Jimmy Vassar, pulls out, passes Greg Moore. He doesn't want anybody to get away. He still wants that second place in the championship, and he'd like to top that off with a win and $1 million.
That moves Vassar up to 3rd. Remember, he's got to stay in the top 4 if he's going to wrench second place and $500,000 out of Dario Franchitti's pocket. There you see his gaps behind the leader, courtesy of Omega Timing. Running order across the bottom of your screen as we approach 100 laps to go in this race. And Jimmy Vasser is flying, although the quickest car on that last lap was 5th place Scott Pruitt.
And remember, Scott Pruitt was that lap down when that one yellow came out, launched him back to onto the lead lap, and he is back up in 5th spot.
Greg Moore at the back of that train. His team refers to Michigan and California as super ovals, and I couldn't think of a better way to describe them.
And I should say he's back up to 4th spot because he's passed Greg Moore as well.
The sound of 900 turbocharged horsepower. Clicking off 2-mile laps at about 31 to 32 seconds per.
Greg Moore started working the high line a little bit. We saw it when he got held up behind Alex Barron. He tried low, low, low. Finally said, the heck with this. And he's kind of been the king of the outside passes going back from his very beginning at Homestead. And if you can get it working on the high side, there's not a whole lot anybody can do to keep you behind it.
Now we saw him go through side by side with Dario Franchitti for the lead earlier, and he didn't lose the lead, and he stayed right up top. And Dario Franchitti says, hey, this is a one-groove racetrack. Obviously not for Greg Moore.
Yeah, we've seen so many times Greg Moore puts the car wherever he wants to.
Yeah, most guys don't want to be the first guy that goes up top, but Greg Moore usually doubles up on the brave pills before these 500 milers and knows that if he can get it working for him, it's a double-edged sword. You go up there and it's not ready. We've seen a lot of cars just take off for the fence and nothing they can do, but it's worth the payoff if you can get it to work.
Keep in mind, this race is taking place 1 month later on the calendar than last year's did. Last year, it was 106 degrees in the pit lane. This year, much cooler. I would guess the temperature about 80 degrees, a light breeze blowing. A great day for racing under blue skies here in the San Joaquin Valley.
And look at Greg Moore. He had dropped back as far as 5th spot. He's now past Jimmy Vasser for 3rd spot. He's on the move.
Greg Moore led this race until the last 10 laps when his engine let go last year. Jimmy Vasser was running 2nd with Mark Blundell behind him. Vasser lifted just that little bit. The yellow didn't come out. We've got a crash. A crash for Scott Pruitt from 5th place. Our pole sitter has had a big impact. Off of turn 4, debris everywhere.
Throws the
sliding down
out
on the grass.
You all right, Scott?
His crew asked him if he's all right. He's already unplugged.
Yeah, he's not a happy camper right now. After that move, coming back, getting his lap back, moving all the way back up, and to have something like this, not what he wanted.
Well, from where he is, Scott Pruitt can walk over and tell his crew how he's feeling. Look at the damage in the back of that car.
And guys, they had just made a change on Scott Pruitt in the pits. Remember we talked about the push he had? They took and put a turn of wing into it. The car still pushed, but he said it tended to neutral as the fuel burned off. Maybe it got a bit too loose.
Let's take a look at some replays here. Scott Pruitt to the left of your screen.
Down low, starts moving up. He just lets it get away. The car just goes sideways on him. He just got a little bit loose, and once they start going loose, there is nothing you can do.
That was Mark Blundell who dodged the spinning Pruitt. Now on board with Scott Pruitt.
Watch his hands in here. He'll go in, lifts off, into the corner. Oh! He never moved his hands. He didn't even really start to get back on the power. It just started to go away on him.
Well, that's one of those things. We talked about it during qualifying. You don't want to chase the car because what happens when these cars break loose, you turn them right and they shoot straight right head first into the fence, and so you resist the temptation to turn left even though the car is spinning. He just held it just about straight and tried to balance it, but that was it.
Hey, you crank in maybe a millisecond of a little bit of opposite lock to try to correct it, but they usually don't work.
Man, Mark Blundell got between that spinning car and the wall, the last place you want to be on an oval, but he was able to drive around him. Now there is Paul Tracy, the race leader, working lap number 140 under caution for the 5th time today. The pits are now open. Let's get down to the pit lane.
Just checking in with Barry Green as he waits on the wall at pit exit. This is the last pit box, and it's the one occupied by Paul Tracy, who will be in here very shortly. Barry says, yeah, we're going to trim it out. That means, of course, they're going to try to decrease some of that aero drag on the straightaway. And if they trim it out, he's been looking real racy and real fast. We'll see if it works to his advantage. But, of course, I guess the danger, guys, is you trim it too much, it gets loose. You may end up in the wall like Pruitt moments ago.
And here come the lead lap cars into the open pits. Paul Tracy, Michael Andretti, Greg Moore. Jimmy Vasser is there. Mauricio Gugelmin as well. Richie Hearn will pit. Adrian Fernandez. Robbie Gordon. Now, Adrian Fernandez, remember, started in 27th place. He's up to 7th.
The first one to stop is Greg Moore because he is pitted closer to pit in. Tires are done. That was a quick stop. Gary, 10-1.
All right, we watch, we wait. We can see Greg Moore coming down off the jack, slight wing change, waiting, holding, problem here. Here goes Greg Moore. There goes Jimmy Vasser. Now finally Tracy gets away in over 15 seconds. Those last 3 seconds just killed him here.
Gary, they did, but they made a change to the rear wing. It looked like they took out the little wicker that's on there. The gurney flap, as some people know it, just a little bit more downforce on the back. Remember, he won't drop back that far, and if it makes the car quicker, look out.
2 more stops to make, Michael.
Ed Nathman telling Michael Andretti there'll be 2 more stops to make as he assumes the lead. We'll take a break and return for a green flag at the 500. Let's give you a program note right now, and it's a correction. RPM tonight will appear on ESPN2 tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, not 8 p.m. as we mentioned earlier. Of course, that's 6 o'clock Pacific Time. Check out RPM tonight only on ESPN Douay. In fact, at 8 o'clock, what you will see is an absolutely mesmerizing final round of the PPG Dayton Indy Lights Championship from right here at the California Speedway. Gary Gerald and Jan Bikas on the microphone along with Rick DeBrule. You're going to want to check that one out. There is Paul Tracy, who had an absolutely abysmal last pit stop. Let's get more from Gary Gerald.
Well, I think we can explain part of it. Danny, you were spot on. We were watching the change up front on the nose wing, and they did pull the wicker bill, that little thin strip that rides along the back part of the upper rear wing. But when they tried to pull it out of there, there was a lot of rubber accumulation. And you can see one of the crew members now here, and maybe we'll get the shot. They're cleaning the rubber off. And that rubber helped it adhere, and it just didn't slide out cleanly. And the extra 2 or 3 seconds that it took to get it free, to get it pulled out, is what cost him his lead spot on the racetrack. And, of course, that's something that they'll be concerned about if they have to change again. Right now, he's running without any kind of a gurney flap or rear wicker bill on that rear wing.
Gary, and what size wicker bill is that? Are we talking 1/8 of an inch there? A 1/4 of an inch? Do you have any idea?
Danny, I am guessing that it's certainly, well, let me ask the guys. How tall is that wicker that you just pulled off?
Taller than me.
Tell me, 1/4 inch?
Don't know, it's this big.
That big. Well, you got to look at it here, and you can kind of judge for yourself. This side, 1/4 of an inch, that side, 1/2 inch. I'm guessing they obviously don't want to tell us.
They just hand me something and say, put it on the car. Michael Andretti leads, Jimmy Vasser, Greg Moore, Mauricio Gugelmin, Richie Hearn, and in 6th place, Paul Tracy. We'll take a break and return. Green flag coming up at the 500 from the California Speedway. A green flag. Michael Andretti came out of the pits in 1st place. Jimmy Vasser, Greg Moore, Mauricio Gugelmin, Richie Hearn. Paul Tracy went from 1st to 6th for reasons that Gary Gerald explained a moment ago. Adrian Fernandez, he too is in that battle for 2nd place in the championship and $500,000 in prize money. But as long as Jimmy Vasser stays in the top 2 positions, it's going to be very tough for Fernandez. Now we're going to take this opportunity to try to talk with Gilles de Ferran in his race car.
Gilles, this is Bob Varsha. Do you read me?
How are you?
Good, Gilles. The question is, how are you doing back there in 16th place? What's happened?
We had a good start of the race. The car was handling very well, and then early on the car went really loose, and we lost a lot of time. And now we're trying to climb back up again. You know, I'm okay in the back, but once I by myself, I tend to lose a little bit of ground. But hopefully we made an adjustment to the car, and hopefully I'll try to make it to this back in front of me and make that lap back up.
We wish you a lot of luck the rest of the way. Thank you, Gilles. Gilles de Ferran shown 1 lap down in 16th place with 104 laps remaining. 103 the next time we go by the start-finish line.
And you heard Gilles make the comment that he's fine in traffic, but he doesn't do very well when he's on his own. Sounds like he has a little bit too much drag in the car, similar to what Paul Tracy felt.
Let's get down to the pit lane. Jan Bikas has more on Gilles de Ferran's situation.
Well, let's ask Derek Walker, because we just spoke to Gilles and he says we're going to climb to the front. How can you help him do that?
Well, if we can get a little bit more speed out of the car, so we're running quick enough and catch, stretch our windows so we catch some yellows when other people have to make a stop. Get a yellow when we want it and get to them when they're on the green.
He said the car was loose. What have you done to tighten it up?
Well, we got it tightened up. We took front wing out, basically, and then now we've freed the car up, trying to make the straight line a little quicker.
Thank you, Derek.
Thanks.
Bob?
Thanks very much. We expect the green flag after our 5th yellow and another sterling cleanup job by the kart safety team. And in this final race of the year, we'd like to extend a big thank you to all of them. Lon Bromley, the Director of Safety, the crew chiefs, Dave Hollander and Tim Veith, and the medical staff under Dr. Steve Olvey, Dr. Rick Timms, and Dr. Terry Trammell. It's a great source of comfort to these drivers knowing that when you open your eyes, you're looking at that yellow uniform that means the kart safety team is on the case. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Right now we have a green flag waving, and Michael Andretti leads Jimmy Vasser, Greg Moore, Mauricio Gugelmin, Richie Hernan, Paul Tracy as the top 5 are on a breakaway. Make that the top 6.
And you saw Jimmy Vasser try to dive down on the inside of Michael. Michael just kind of leaned down on him a little bit. I'm not having any of that. Not on the restart.
Same thing we said early, first few laps, we said, well, Jimmy's just going to search it out, but Jimmy also has a nose for when it, oh, look at those guys.
Side by side.
That is Paul Tracy and Mauricio Gugelmin. Paul Tracy around the outside. Obviously, that wicker change did not affect his car to the negative. That was a very good move.
Well, interesting, you have 2 options. If the car is pushing, you can either take wing out of the back or add it to the front. We heard about the discussion between Alex and Mo Nunn. Mo felt adamant adding was the right way. Paul Tracy and Team Cool Green thinks the other way is the answer.
But you have to know what their overall wing package is to make that decision. That's the tough part.
This time
we sit up here and speculate.
Excuse me, Danny. This time by, there will be 100 laps remaining in the 500. 100 laps. Still one of these drivers picks up $1 million. Jimmy Vasser making a bid for the lead. Goes high around Michael Andretti. And what a slingshot. Look at the gap he has opened up over Andretti, who will have Greg Moore's attention as you see Moore going down inside Andretti. That's for second place, and they are not alone. Moore takes it.
Michael wanted to stay on the power there. I don't think he felt his car was handling well enough. He backed off just a little bit, slipped right in there behind Greg, and he's going back underneath him into turn 1.
You hear about sprint car drivers stuffing it down on the inside. You don't hear about it a lot at 230 miles an hour, but that's about exactly what that looked like. Michael said, I'm not going to leave you any more than 1 car with. Greg Moore said, that's all I need.
But you saw what Michael did, very professional, showed his experience. He just eased out of it enough just to let Moore by, slotted right in behind him, was back on the power, and passed him going into turn 1.
Looks like Paul Tracy closing up on Greg Moore there, fellow Canadian, for 3rd place.
And guys, one of the things they're having to deal with right now is the wind is starting to pick up, and it's blowing from turn number 4 down to turn number 1. So that will make the car work a little bit different on one end versus the other.
That wind is blowing in the drivers' faces as they make their way up the long backstretch. In the lead is Jimmy Vasser. This is lap number 153. The last lap Vasser led officially, lap 24.
We're talking about that wind. Remember yesterday in qualifying, the wind was very brisk, and some of the drivers were complaining that it was strong enough that it actually helped move the car around as they had the wind at their back. Headed down that back straightaway, we were talking with some of the engineers, and they were saying the difference was as much as 900 revs lost against the wind as opposed to coming down the front straightaway with the wind at your back. Yeah, that was yesterday in qualifying.
And what that doesn't really affect the driver so much. He doesn't really care about the headwind or tailwind. What he does care about is if it's coming across him in the corner and it moves the car around in the corners and can upset that balance, get it a little loose, or push up high to the fence. that's when you got a problem.
That's exactly right, because you're coming down the straightaway, it's dead on your tail, you turn in, it's kind of diagonal, then it's dead across the side. Sometimes it picks up the nose first. The nose feels the extra downforce a little bit earlier, can pin the nose and get the car loose. Greg Moore back down the inside around Michael again.
I was about to say, our lap times just over 32 seconds now. I wonder if the wind is a factor in the fact that the lap times have slowed slightly. There's the view from our Honda Helicam as this great battle continues through the top 6 places.
And look at this. Michael's coming down on the inside. Greg just says, no way. I'm going to stay up high. If you want to go down low, you can have it. Remember one thing, too. As a driver, what I always did on the big super speedways is the flags or wind sockets they have at some of the places. I checked those every lap going into every corner to see what was, if it had changed, so I knew what the wind was going to do to the balance of my car at various spots.
Last lap speed for Greg Moore, 229.24 miles an hour. Well, maybe they're not slowing down all that much.
That's an interesting graphic. Two cars running right together on the racetrack. One runs 229, the other one runs 224. Obviously, on the next lap, it's just about reversed because they're right in the same spot.
And it depends on who got the benefit, where they timed him. If he got that toe right before the start-finish line, slingshot by him, he's going to have a quicker lap.
And guys right behind those leaders, a great battle for 5th, 6th, and 7th. And one of those battling is Adrian Fernandez, who started at the very back of this field after the crew worked to repair the damaged car yesterday. They were slow comparatively in the morning practice and warm-up session, and he's looking real racy right now.
Adrian Fernandez in the thick of this battle. He is closing up Mauricio Gugelmin in 7th, so it's a 7-car train battling up front. Here comes Gugelmin down underneath Fernandez. Fernandez needs to move up, get a hold of Jimmy Vasser, because right now, 2nd place in the championship, and that $500,000 check would appear to belong to Vasser.
But there is a lot of racing yet to go, and these guys are all at the front, all battling, trying to figure out where they have the advantage, where their disadvantage is, and hope to be able to take advantage of that situation late in the race.
That's one of the few mid-corner passes we've seen, with Mark Blundell going around the outside right in the middle of the corner. We've seen a lot at the end of the straightaway, stuffing it down the inside, but the pass that was started on the straightaway, that one was the first mid-corner on the outside pass I've seen.
Checking speeds at the line. Greg Moore fastest, Michael Andretti 2nd, Jimmy Vasser 3rd. Let's see if someone further back in the group is running faster. Nope, it appears Greg Moore was the fastest man that last time around.
And of course, Greg Moore is being benefited by the toe from Jimmy Vasser. Jimmy Vasser's not getting any help from anybody out there.
Boy, hard to get the camera to move fast enough to make that pan in these incredibly quick corners. The track is 75 feet wide. Absolutely rocking around. Now Bobby Rahal, let's update his story. In his last performance as a driver, runs in 12th place. Jan Bikas.
Well, of course, he ran very well in the beginning of the race, and then the car got loose and he lost a lot of ground. But in the subsequent pit stops, they've been able to tighten that car back up again, and I believe he is the last car on the, I should say, the first car 1 lap down. So if he can get 1 lap back, he'll be up with the leaders. They now say the car's fast enough, but of course they're making up for lost ground.
While up front, the battle continues to close up as you ride with Bobby Rahal. Shadows growing longer. We're on daylight savings time, which means it's going to get darker a lot earlier than it did 1 year ago here in Southern California.
Of course, Bob, I don't think the shadows will affect them too much. What will affect them is as the sun gets lower is in their eyes. The shadows they're pretty used to. The only thing that would affect them if there was some debris on the track that they couldn't see.
Foot of the San Bernardino Range. We had a beautiful view of snow-topped Mount Baldy yesterday. A little more obscure today. Jimmy Vasser's last lap, 226.6. Greg Moore slightly faster in 2nd place. 2 of the strongest cars on the track last year. Greg Moore was leading when his engine let go with 10 laps to go. Jimmy Vasser was 2nd, but he lifted slightly, expecting the yellow. Mark Blundell jumped around him from 3rd place. Controversial finish. Blundell won. Stay there. This Toyota Spotlight focuses on one of the featured events of this 500-mile weekend. Some of the classic Indy-style cars of the past, including a '57 Curtis 500 driven by Juan Manuel Fangio, a 61 Cooper Climax driven by Jack Brabham, and a 1985 March 85C driven by our own Danny Sullivan in his famous spin and win at the Indianapolis 500. Danny, how did it feel to get back behind the wheel of that car? As we watch this battle for second place, Andretti and Moore wheel to wheel.
These guys have been going great. It was fantastic to be out there, get a little bit of a feel of what they are experiencing right now going around the track. And the amazing part is, as usual, that car was beautifully prepared and handled just like it did when they took it off the track.
Michael Andretti slashing underneath Greg Moore to take back second place. Meanwhile, Mark Blundell, who has been lapping at about 230 miles an hour for the last few, very light on fuel. He is now pitted in and out with another full load. 81 laps to go. Next time under the flag stand to Jan Bikus.
Well, the really nice news is Scott Pruitt has his street clothes on. You're okay, but you look sore.
Yeah, a little stiff. I took a pretty good lick out there, and it's just unfortunate. I'm not right for sure what happened. We just got down in there, all of us were racing together, and the rear just all of a sudden just jumped out from underneath me. So we'll go back and look at things and see if we can find anything to happen. But not really the way I wanted to go out at the end of the season. We qualified on pole here with Vistion and with Ford and my last race with Pat. So this is a little disappointing.
Track conditions, I mean, obviously the car stepped out, but prior to that, you were on fire.
Yeah, we started out, the car was a bit loose. We made some adjustments, actually went a lap down, and then passed Greg back and got our lap back. And it was just unfortunate because we finally had a pretty good car going, and all of a sudden it jumped out from underneath me.
Well, thankfully you're okay. Thanks.
Yeah.
Bob?
Thanks, Jan. New era in Scott Pruitt's career about to dawn in the offseason as he joins Archie Arrow Wells Racing. New sponsorship from Pioneer Electronics. He will be a part of the constantly improving Toyota program in 1999. Now there is Alex Zanardi. Recall that he struggled out of the top 10 for a long time. That black flag for the problem in the pits when he left too early with the fuel hose still attached. And now he finds himself in the top 6. Zanardi is working his magic once again. The order is Vassar, Andretti, Moore, Tracy, Gugelmin, and Zanardi. 78 laps to go next time by.
And let's not forget Adrian Fernandez is right there in 7th. Started dead last. Was a lap down. They've made some good calls. That's Scott Pruitt's teammate. We know we've got a fast car.
Guys, one of those guys, Paul Tracy, is trying to hang on to that 4th spot. The 3 men in front of him, Vassar, Andretti, and Moore, pulling away just a little bit. We understand that Tracy's gone a little bit loose. He's working with the weight jacker, trying to help get the balance on the car, but he's going to have his hands full, perhaps trying to hold off Mauricio Gugelmin. Now we're getting ready for a Zanardi pit stop, so he's made his move up to 6th. They'll be calling him in on this next lap.
Gary, I wonder if that will mean when Paul Tracy makes his pit stop that they will put that questionable wicker bill back in the car.
And we'll just keep an eye on him when it comes to that moment, see what we can find out.
Sun glinting off the car. Bobby Rahal heads for his pit. Rahal pitting from 10th spot. Now one of the Target Chip Ganassi Racing teammates, Alex Zanardi, makes a stop. With 77 laps to go. It's often been said about 500-mile races, you try to get to that last 150 miles when the real racing begins. We're about to reach 150 miles to go.
Watching the crew service Zanardi, right front wing, half turn, front tire, chassis, jack was hung up on the hose. They clear it, 14.1 seconds. They lost maybe 2 seconds trying to clear that hose from something, I assume, the jack on the front of the car.
Well, one thing that they did not want to do, Gary, was take a chance and go out and be penalized another lap like they were last time. It's better to take those 2 seconds right now than take the penalty.
Watching Greg Moore running in 3rd place. 175 laps complete, 75 to go.
2 seconds is all relative in terms of gap, but at the speeds these cars are running, 2 seconds here is about 2 football fields.
That's right. That's a lot of ground to make up, but it's not as much as a lap if he had to come back in for a stop and go.
No question about it.
A lot of strain on all of the components of the car, but particularly the engine. Some 4,000 parts in these meticulously assembled power plants. The Just masterpieces of engineering. Spinning at incredibly high revs. 250, 260 revolutions per second. That's a lot of air to move in and out of a 2.65 liter turbocharged engine.
Now you talk about the engine. Tommy and I think that a lot of the strain and stress is on the driver. Everybody's sitting at home on their couch, in their chair, watching this, probably have had a couple sandwiches, a couple beers, enjoying themselves. These guys are out there, no break, no timeout, no half times, no substitutions. If they make a little mistake, these guys have to focus and concentrate at 230 plus miles an hour all day long.
I think one of the first times I ever talked with Rick Mears, he asked me a little about Formula One, which I was covering at the time. I said, boy, I tell you, those cars are amazing. The drivers will get 4 Gs in the turns sometimes. Rick kind of smiled a little bit and said, tell them to do that 4 times a lap for 250 laps and see how they like it. We'll take a break. We are under green here at the 500. Jimmy Vasser leads. Back live at the 500 at California Speedway, Michael Andretti pits. Behind him, Paul Tracy is also in. Adrian Fernandez is also in. We expect all of the lead cars.
4 tires up, 1 turn front wing.
Ed Nathman coaxes him in, starts addressing the team.
Tells them they're going to do a turn in front wing.
Going up 1 turn, okay. Hold it. Hold. Wait a minute, second, long time. Go.
See, Ed was telling him to hold him, and also that guy at the left front of the car was saying he had his hand out. Stop. Don't go anywhere. He didn't want him to pull away. Got to get that fuel in.
Greg Moore is in, Jan Bikas.
And you can see that he is definitely taking it much easier on his approach. You can hear the engine. You want to continue to keep this thing revved up to be sure you don't stall it when it goes into gear. They're waiting for the fuel. It's in gear. Greg Moore's out of here. A little over 12 seconds, Gary.
And Jimmy Vasser's already down, waiting for the fuel. They went up a half turn on the wing. Here comes Greg Moore. They're going to be side by side. 14.9 for Vasser, and Moore beats him out.
Now, everybody at home might say, why are these pit stops getting slower? Remember one thing, there's less fuel in the tank, less weight to force that fuel down the hose and into the car.
One more pit stop should remain for our leading cars. Mauricio Gugelmin assumes the race lead. His 5th pit stop of the day coming up. There is Vasser.
Now these guys, if you watch them during qualifying, they had someone that stopped and turned one. That's got it going again.
Is that?
Oh no, Richie Hearn.
Richie Hearn.
Spun and continued.
Wow, talk about your spin and win. Richie Hearn apparently went all the way around and now comes back up to speed.
And what's that going to do to Big Mo? Gugelmin, he's in the pits. Big Mo's in the pits. The yellow's out.
Let's take a look. Richie Hearn on the grass at this point. Question is how he got there. Off of the apron, up onto the racing surface. Now, in practice, we saw Jimmy Vasser spin as he exited the pits. As he got on the power, the car just broke away from him. He went around onto the grass. Richie Hearn, who tasted his first lead in a FedEx Championship race here a year ago.
Okay, he's exiting the pits. Stands on the gas. Oh, he just stood on the gas. Cold tires.
That is exactly, I mean, almost to the foot where Jimmy Vasser lost his car. Same exact thing. And it takes, like in qualifying, on the warm-up laps, like even Michael, who's notoriously aggressive, was being very careful, even up on the banking for the about the first lap and a half.
So Hearn in the Budweiser Ralph's Food for Less car is back underway. Michael Andretti remains on the racetrack as we are under yellow once again. Has been providing our aerial pictures today at the controls. Pilot Joel Chamberlain. 1998 is the 100th anniversary of Goodyear and the 73rd for its blimp fleet. Let's go to Jan Bikas.
Well, we talked about Tony Kanaan and the problem that you had with the front wings adjusting themselves. How scary was that?
I tell you what, I mean, was very scary because the car got so pushed and on traffic and by myself as well that I almost touched the wall 4 times. And I was screaming in the radio. I mean, I don't know what's going on, Steve. I have to come in. And we finally did, and we changed the front wing, and then we got the car so loose because we made adjustments for the wrong things, tire pressures and everything. And
and then at the end, the wheel bearing just broke. But, you know, the last race was a tough weekend for us, but we did what we had to do. So I'm the Rookie of the Year. Actually, I'm not a rookie anymore, finally, and I can go back next year and, you know, try to do better, finish in the top 10 in the championship. We did what we had to do. I promise that I will win the Rookie of the Year in the beginning. I promised to Steve I will finish in the top 10, and I promise I will win the race. So I keep two promises, and I did one. So,
what do you promise for next year?
Well, I promise that Tony's going to go back 100%, and I'm going to try to win the championship. I know it's going to be hard, but I'm going to give everything.
Thanks, Tony.
Thank you.
Tony Kanaan, winner of the Jim Truman Award for Rookie of the Year. Let's take a look at some of the other awards distributed this weekend in this Toyota Spotlight. How about the Marlboro Pole Award, featuring all of the pole winners from the year. They plucked a key, tried to start a Mercedes E430. Guys like Jimmy Vasser tried, Dario Franchitti tried. Not much luck. Franchitti had 5 attempts. When Brian Herta climbed in, he won the Mercedes. And as it would happen, he did it for the 2nd year in a row. As we mentioned, Tony Kanaan, Rookie of the Year. The Manufacturers' Championship went to Honda in style. And in the Nations Cup, the only unclaimed award thus far, the United States leads Italy by 10 points. Right now, it's a Brazilian out front, Mauricio Gugelmin, followed by Canadian Greg Moore and Americans Jimmy Vasser and Michael Andretti. Our coverage of the 500, stand by for Sports Center with all the news of the day in the NFL, the PGA Tour Championship in my hometown of Atlanta, Georgia. All of the news in the day in sports. Sports Center coming up next on ESPN. Our 6th caution flag of the day continues here at the California Speedway. Mauricio Gugelmin leads Greg Moore, Jimmy Vasser, Michael Andretti, and Paul Tracy, the top 5. Other cars still on the lead lap. Alex Zanardi in 6th place, despite that black flag not so long ago. Mark Blundell shown officially with just 4 pit stops to all of the other lead cars 5 or even 6. Runs in 7th place, followed by Adrian Fernandez, who has come all the way from 27th place to 8th. Richie Hearn runs 9th. Christian Fittipaldi is 10th.
We should point out that Richie Hearn was the cause of this yellow. He didn't even lose a lap, and he's right there in 9th place.
Christian Fittipaldi dives for the pit lane. You see the cars out of the race. Most recently, Rookie of the Year Tony Kanaan, who just always seems to have a smile on his face, no matter what. There's the view from our Honda Helicam of this beautiful 529-acre facility, roughly twice the size of Disneyland in nearby Anaheim, and much of it, as you can see, covered with beautifully manicured grass, palm trees, with more amenities than any other racetrack in the country or the world, for that matter, that I can think of, including the opportunity to take the Metro Rail from downtown LA right to the backstretch. To Gary Gerald.
How about a story of race driver optimism? And I know Tommy and Danny can really relate to this. Robbie Gordon made a great charge early. Right now he's a lap down in 11th place. Every race all year long, his crew's always telling him, Robbie, you're the fastest car in the racetrack. And Robbie believes it. And he just told them a short time ago, he says, I think that Brinks truck's going to be pulling up next to our car at the end of this race. He is an optimist. A lap down in 11th, time running out, but he still thinks he's going to win it. I love it. Jan?
Well, Gary, with just one more pit stop remaining, what these teams have done, the drivers have gone out in practice and picked a special set of tires. Here's Greg Moore's tires. You see it says Save 99, which of course is Greg Moore's number. He ran on these tires for only 2 laps. He says, this is the set of tires I want to finish the race on. It's his set that he likes. He knows how the car feels, and he says, I'm going to let it all hang out when we put these on the last stop.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. There is number 99. With those fillers put into the tunnels of the underbody of the car for the Super Speedway event. We'll look at our lap leaders. Greg Moore, 2 more than Jimmy Vasser. Mark Blundell led a lap, and Richie Hearn led 7 at this track where he led his first FedEx Championship Series race a year ago.
If Moore puts those magic tires on and then goes right to the front, you're going to have Jack Roush screaming bloody murder. When Jeff Gordon did that and was winning every weekend, putting 2 on, 1 on, none on, pretty soon it was too much for Jack, and he said they've got to have magic tires, and Ray Abraham said, Jack, the only thing in there is air.
That sort of thing doesn't happen in Winston Cup racing, does it?
I made it all up.
From
well,
Omega
the one thing that drivers do, though, is correct what Jan said. They try to find a good set. They go through a lot of sets of tires looking for that right set to make sure that they've got them on the car. And sometimes you'll even take a set off if you've had a short run in a yellow and they come in and change the tires, and then had only 10 or 11 laps on you, so that's a good set. They put them back there for spares.
Now, is it usually, I mean, it can be anything. Sometimes there's no explanation, but a lot of times it's usually just the perfect stagger. Is that right?
Perfect stagger. The tires feel right. They help balance the car. They just feel right on that car. It's a very tough decision to make because you only run them about 2 hard laps.
Here's a look at the 1999 FedEx Championship schedule and the ESPN or ABC dates that you will see these races on. A full 20 races on the 1999 schedule. Of course, we'll be in spring training in Homestead, Florida in February and come back in March to open the season on ABC TV. A new race, an oval event in Chicago, Illinois. Sportsman Park 1 mile oval, a flat track. Much like the 1 mile oval we see so much action on at Milwaukee every year. That'll be on ESPN on August 22nd next year. There's a packed television schedule. It'll be a great season. We hope you'll be there with us every step of the way. We anticipate the green. Certainly race leader Mauricio Gugelmin does as he comes up to speed. And Jim Swintel waves the green flag. Gil de Ferran running right behind his fellow Brazilian. He goes high and around him to get on the lead lap. Excuse me, I may have a voice for the end of this 500 miler. Michael Andretti and Jimmy Vasser battle. Vasser looks up high. No room there right now. And sun getting low. That'll be getting in the driver's eyes. Coming up to speed across the line.
And you know what? Let's say Robbie Gordon said that Brink Trucks is going to pull up next to him. He's now up in the second spot on the track, and he's hoping for a yellow right now, as is Gil de Ferran, so they could get back on the lead lap.
He just went smoking right around the outside of Mo Gugelmin. Up in the second on the track. Now Gugelmin smoking right back around him. Greg Moore doing the same. There's Gugelmin getting back, putting Robbie another lap down effectively. Or back a lap down, I should say.
On board with Michael Andretti. There's Greg Moore. Nose to tail across the line they go. Now Michael Andretti goes down low under Moore. Just ahead of him. Robbie Gordon doing the same thing.
And they pick their line. Michael goes low. Greg Moore goes high. Which is going to be quicker? That slow car in the middle right there. Probably Bobby Rahal probably affected. Look at that. They dive out all the way down over the white line down the back straightaway.
Rahal went underneath Robbie Gordon. I had it backwards. It was Rahal under Gordon, not the other way around. Then Rahal had to back out of it big time, and you saw what happened to the cars behind.
You saw Greg Moore popped out. Alex Zanardi was trying to get by Greg at the same time. 4 wide, big scramble. Now you see in-car for Michael. That's Zanardi up on the right, Greg Moore to the left. All going around the outside of Rahal. Now here comes Paul Tracy mixing it up. This is what we saw for 500 miles. Now the guys, the chips are down. They're ready to get racing.
This is a mixture of cars a lap down and cars on the lead lap, but everybody racing hard. Into turn 3 they go. Michael Andretti. Alex Zanardi in the middle of all that. Zanardi currently shown in 6th place. Will unwind him at the start-finish line. As de Ferran crosses back on the lead lap. The order is Gugelmin, Vasser, Andretti, Tracy, Zanardi in 5th. Greg Moore 6th. Adrian Fernandez 7th. Richie Hearn 8th. Christian Fittipaldi 9th. Mark Blundell in 10th.
Paul Tracy was going to swing around the outside of Rahal. Rahal moved up about a half a groove. Then Zanardi popped it down underneath. Look at that. Oh, Paul got enough of a draft from Bobby that he was able to sneak back in front of Alex.
When you get pinched in, look at this, Greg Moore. 3 abreast on the outside. Greg had to think better of it. Backed off a little bit. Wants to get that toe. So does Zanardi. He tries to ease up there.
We talked about if anyone can make that move, Greg has been kind of testing the high line. Wasn't quite ready to make it 3 wide, but has been checking it out. On the last lap, he'll do it.
Watching Bobby Rahal, who at the beginning of his career raced at the old Ontario Motor Speedway, just a few miles down Interstate 10 from this track in Fontana, California. He raced a Formula Atlantic, and he started on the front row for that race alongside the late Formula One legend Gilles Villeneuve. Bobby, the only driver in this field who raced at the old Ontario.
And Bobby Rahal, of course, does not want to give up that spot to anybody. He's still trying to get himself back onto the lead lap.
Zanardi eyeing the 3-time champion in his final race. 2 men in their final race in the series. 2 champions, 5 titles between them. Back to Mauricio Gugelmin, the race leader. coming up to complete 200 laps. 50 to go, 100 miles remaining for $1 million.
And Bob, a lot of times with 50 laps to go, they put it in the gear that gives them more power. But for right now, Mauricio Gugelmin still in the cruising gear.
Use several top gears in these cars. Ooh, Bobby Rahal slides high.
And Adrian Fernandez there to take advantage of it. Went down underneath him. Bobby comes back strong.
Meanwhile, on board with Michael Andretti in second place. Going for the lead underneath Mauricio Gugelmin at the stripe.
And he got him at the line. That is an official pass.
With 201 laps complete, another lead change as Michael Andretti rockets away, opening about a 5 or 6 car length advantage over Mauricio Gugelmin. Look at that speed differential for the last lap. 5 miles an hour faster was Michael Andretti.
Here comes Vassar getting by the lap car. Gilles de Ferran pulled himself up right behind Big Mo.
Michael's effort was the 20th lead change of the race thus far. Great stuff. Nose to tail, wheel to wheel around the racetrack. Paul Tracy trailing Gilles de Ferran. Onto the back stretch. Ferran coming back now.
And that's not like Jimmy. You see Jimmy getting a little bit defensive. You know, even though de Ferran's is a lap down, isn't battling for position, if he gets up there and mixes it up, Jimmy kind of blunted that run, figuring if he can get break away from Gilles, he can settle it with just the guys in front.
Heard Derek Walker saying outside. You see right there, Paul Tracy coming around him on the outside. He's just warning his driver what's going on. Driver's having to focus on what's happening in front of him. A little help from Derek.
Goes Greg Moore underneath Gilles de Ferran. Alex Zanardi in close attendance.
And even though Gilles de Ferran is a lap down, you heard him, they're trying to get back on that lead lap so that they can have a go toward the end.
The grandstand is packed and everybody is on their feet watching these battles. 106,000 people here enjoying this race. 45 laps to go next time by as they snake down the backstretch. Andretti in the lead. Mauricio Gugelmin being swallowed up now. He drops back to fourth. Jimmy Vassar went by. Paul Tracy goes by. To the stripe they come. Andretti, Vassar, Tracy, Gugelmin, Moore, Zanardi, Fernandez, Blundell, Hearn, and Fittipaldi.
Greg Moore trying to work the high line, trying to get around Big Mo up on the outside. Looks like he's pulled it off.
Moore moves into fourth, dropping Gugelmin to fifth.
Bob, the reason that Gugelmin is dropping back, he does not have a mechanical problem. They have told him, we don't need to lead right now. Just hang in there. We're going to try to lead the last 10 laps, not the last 50.
Oh, man, there are some cool nerves in that pit.
I don't know, and look at Alex Zanardi's coming right up there. That's a pretty tough bunch right up in front of you.
Jimmy Vassar around Michael Andretti and into the race lead now. Paul Tracy remains in third.
The big question is, do you want to be in the lead or do you want to be second? I have to say, I mean, Jimmy, after Michigan, he thought he made the right move, but then he just couldn't get back to Greg. I have to think the way things have been going here, being a little bit more one line, the leader goes right down to the white line in both corners. I got to think you want to be out front.
I tell you what I've seen today, I want to be out in front. The other thing about out in front is you're dictating what's going on. When you're back in the pack, you're having to deal with everybody else. A little mistake, and you can be caught up in that mistake and take you out. I like being in the front.
And the fact that you go to the white line twice a lap, you mess up the guys there going over the guys' wings behind you. And at Michigan, you don't get down to the white line for the optimal line. Here, every time you touch that white line, it kind of pushes the guy back a little bit. So he's got to get it done from center corner to center corner.
One thing else we're seeing, you can be in third spot here. You drop 2 positions, you're back to fifth. Long way to claw back to the front. You're up front, you drop 1 or 2 spots, you're only back third.
A lot of this mixing we've seen has also taken place on restarts with fresh tires. I think once the initial edge is gone, they're not able to run quite as close to the car in front.
That's true, but also what we see is that as their fuel load lightens, that can also change the balance of the car. What we don't know is what everybody's doing right now with their top gear. Some guys are running a 5th gear, some are running 6th. don't forget they run a couple of top gears. We don't know what gear everybody's in.
Look at that crowd on its feet. You can see the whole front straightaway just sold out, just about sold out. A couple thousand short, 106,000 people.
Tommy, they've been that way, it seems like almost all afternoon. The only time they set down is after the yellows, or when the yellow settles in, but as soon as they go green, we've been watching them, the whole lower tier of the grandstand in mass.
The Canadians are battling Tracy and Moore. That's for third place. Moore looked down. Tracy came down, and that was it for Moore's move.
I don't know if they fixed that car in the pit stop with that wicker, Bill, but Paul Tracy certainly looks more racy right now and more comfortable with the handling.
There are the top 5 cars, all running nose to tail. Vassar, Andretti, Tracy, Moore, Gugelmin. Down the backstretch, 230 miles an hour plus. Just behind Gugelmin lurks the 2-time reigning champion. Big crash up in 3 and 4. Michael Andretti.
With me. 4-10-4.
Hear Michael just say, "It was me."
Oh, shit.
And you heard some other descriptive language there.
Wow, understandably upset.
What happened is they were calling to him yellow, 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 and out of breath. It's good to hear that he's well enough to at least huff and puff back that that it was him.
All right, we're on board with him. Entering the corner right here, goes in, goes down under the white line with that tire, and as you saw, not a very good signal after that. But he got down way low,
way below
and
the
he
white
was
line.
out of the throttle. You heard him lift out, got down there, moved around a little bit, just got the car moving. Mario very concerned right there.
He got that left front wheel down where the track goes from the 11 or 12 degree banking to horizontal. Another look.
Now what's going to happen here too, we'll talk about this in just a second. Everybody that was in that lead group, everybody in the field for that matter, will be setting up for their final pit stop. We have about 38 laps remaining. They will be able to go to the distance. They'll do a couple of more laps under the yellow, come in, top up, put their new tires on. Greg Moore will put that special set on, and we're going to have a trophy dash.
Robbie Gordon is already in the pits. Let's take another look.
That
once
was
again.
a tremendous hit.
Okay, Michael Andretti, we're entering turn 3. You can see the sun. See the sun. Now watch him here. He's turning down. Watch there. It'll go down under the white line. It changes right there. It flattens out. Pinches the car a little bit. Car turns a little sideways. Once it turns sideways, that's all she wrote. Just lock up the brakes and hold on for the ride.
Actually, if we can show that again, if you watch why the apron upsets the car so much, you can actually watch. These cars have very little suspension trouble. You can actually see the left front bump. And the minute you see that left front wiggle up here,
watch
the left front here, when you see this thing bump, the next instant you'll see instant opposite lock. Coming up here, he's down below. As soon as you see that suspension bump, right there, it's over at that point.
Much of the suspension movement comes from the sidewalls of these tires. A ½ pound of air pressure in the tire can make 50 pounds of spring rate difference. Kart safety team on the job. And now the pits are active once again. Jan Mikas.
And Mauricio Gugelmin and Jimmy Reed there on the left front had a little trouble getting it off, but he recovers. They wait for the field. Boy, that was a quick one. He's on the way towards Gary.
And Jimmy Vassar up on the jacks. Alex Zanardi right behind him. In front of him by 2 pits is Paul Tracy. A flurry of activity. It may be the last time these teams will be tested in the pits. Gugelmin rolls by. Vassar's rolling. Moore beat him out. Lundell beat him out. Zanardi's right behind him, and Tracy got out ahead of the 2 target cars.
Good pit stop for Team Cool Green and Paul Tracy. Good one for the Pac West group for Mauricio Gugelmin. Michael Andretti got out of the car, got into one of the safety vehicles, walked to the ambulance.
Tremendous tribute to the strength of these cars. I mean, we've seen some hellacious hits. That one in particular hit very hard on the back and then whipped aside right into the front followed suit.
8th DNF of the year for Michael Andretti, 7 of those involving contact. We'll take a break and get set for a dramatic green flag for $1 million. Back live at California Speedway, going through the shadows of turns 3 and 4, where Michael Andretti just had a heavy crash to bring out our 7th caution of the day. Mauricio Gugelmin leads. Once again, these pictures coming from the Goodyear Blimp Eagle, based in Carson, California. Goodyear recently increased its blimp fleet to 6. with 2 new airships in Europe, 1 in South America. Familiar sign high above the Goodyear blimp. Down on the racetrack, Margie Eatwell has the Toyota Solara pace car out there, leading Mauricio Gugelmin, Paul Tracy, Greg Moore, Mark Blundell, Jimmy Vasser, Alex Zanardi, Adrian Fernandez, Richie Hearn, and Christian Fittipaldi. 9 cars on the lead lap, all nose to tail as we get set to go green. There will be 34 laps to go next time by.
One thing, you might be wondering, why would Michael drive down on the apron? He knows better, but if you look up ahead, the thing we talked about keeping offset, now is money time. Gary Gerald?
Chip Ganassi coming down to talk to Tom Anderson. I assume you're talking strategy between Alex and Jimmy Vasser. What can you tell us?
Well, obviously, Gary, we want to have Jimmy up at 1, 2, or 3 there, but we don't want to lose the race either. We want to win. So we're going to see what happens here in the next 20 or so laps. And
is there enough yellow here now that you're going to be able to run full rich the rest of the way, or do you need more laps of yellow?
No, we can go to the finish from here. It's going to be a shootout.
Oh, baby. All right, Jan.
And of course, when you have a shootout, that means that you have a choice between the 2 gears. We just checked in with Mauricio Gugelmin's team. They're not yet going to go to the higher revving gear. The reason I didn't say which gear is because for their specific situation, the 6th gear is the higher revs, the 5th gear is the cruise gear. They say right now, we're staying in 5th.
Once a racing driver, always a racing driver. You can hear Chip Ganassi almost getting breathless talking about the battle to come. Mauricio Gugelmin out front. What a victory it would be for Pac West. But that story is long from told. Welcome back to the California Speedway, where the 500 has 32 laps remaining next time by in a shootout for $1 million. Of course, that's $1 million to win. Second and third place money remains as at every other stop on the Kart FedEx Championship Series, 60 grand and 50 grand. What can you buy with $1 million? Oh, how about some Texaco Havoline oil? Nearly 77,000 cases of it. Some new cars, you can get 51 Ford Tauruses or Mercury Sables. More than 830 sets of Goodyear Eagle racing tires. Send 74,000 FedEx overnight letters to all of your close friends. And AA batteries. Can't have enough of them. 4 packs, 257,000. That'll keep your electronic game going on the airplane for a couple of flights to a surfer's paradise. We'll take a break as the sun continues to set low here in Southern California. A great race is coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back to the California Speedway, high above a grandstand packed with fans who have been standing for 150 laps or so. Our announced position is inside that center, and on the top of it, the spotter's position, there is Roger Penske, who owns the racetrack as well as the cars of Al Unser Jr. and Andre Ribeiro, who sadly dropped out of this race very early on. The captain watching over his domain. Let's go down to Gary Gerald with an interested fan.
Yeah, that interested fan. We heard from him earlier. Dario Franchitti, of course, his race ended some time ago. You're sitting here on the wall, and I know you're anxiously cheering for your teammate Paul Tracy to try to keep that 12 car, Jimmy Vasser, back, because there's a $500,000 riding on second place in points. So what is the scenario? What does Jimmy have to do to make you safe?
Jimmy's got to finish outside of the top 3, and then we'll be second in the championship. I mean, really, the difference between second and third in the money situation is not that important. The second place in the championship would really show what we've done all season long, and that would be important to myself and the guys at Team Cole Green. But I want to see Paul go out and win this race. I think he can. I think he's got the car there. I think it's going to be a battle towards the end, and I think Paul can do it.
All right, they're chewing fingernails down here, guys. Jan?
Well, the good news is that Michael Andretti has come out in one piece from the Kart Medical Center. We saw that you went below the white line. Is that what caused it?
Yeah, that's what happened. I just I was having a little problem seeing. My windscreen was a little too high and it was all full of rubber, and then there was the glare of the sun, and I just went down too far. And I was trying to get as much track as I could when I was behind Jimmy, because I had a little bit of understeer, and I just got under a line and hit the apron, and that was it. I hit pretty hard.
Who do you think has the strongest car out there right now?
I really think Jimmy does, because when I was by myself in the lead, I could only run 224, but then Jimmy gets in front. He can run 227s and pull me around. So I think Jimmy looks like the strongest.
How much time do you take off before you start testing and getting ready for next year?
2 weeks we start testing, so that's flat out.
Okay, as soon as those blackout dates are over, he'll be back in the car. Thanks, Michael.
Thanks.
Good to see Michael Andretti with that rueful smile on his face, not hurt. Here's a look at the points as of this moment. Alex Zanardi with that record gap over Dario Franchitti, followed by Jimmy Vasser, Adrian Fernandez. We are still about to play out the story of second place in the championship as the green flag awaits. The first two drivers in line have never won a 500-mile race. Behind them, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth, Moore, Blundell, Vasser, and Alex Zanardi have won 4 of the last 5 500-mile races. We could see history here today, as well as that $1 million bestowed on one of these drivers.
And we saw Paul Tracy make a great move on Big Mo. Really planned that restart, got a great jump. Look out, but Zanardi made a knifing move through Jimmy Vasser and Mark Blundell and went right around, up through the inside and around the outside to make a great pass going into turn 1.
Redemption can be a wonderful thing, and redemption is exactly what it would be for either of those two guys up front. Paul Tracy, who has seen so much trouble both on and off the racetrack this year. Mauricio Gugelmin and the Pac West team. Bobby Rahal dives for the pit lane as the battle continues on the racetrack. Greg Moore in third. And then Alex Zanardi, followed by teammate Jimmy Vasser.
And of course, we heard from Chip Ganassi. He said ultimately he wants to win the race, but they'd like to have Jimmy second place in the championship. These are the only two teammates out there. Well, Blundell's a little bit ways behind Mauricio Gugelmin, but these teammates have worked together well in the past.
Doesn't help Jimmy Vasser's cause to have been demoted to 5th by Alex Zanardi, who took over 4th place on that last lap.
There's still 27 laps remaining. There's a lot of racing left to go.
Paul Tracy with his head down, literally and figuratively. Checking the speeds on the previous lap. Mauricio Gugelmin is second place, slightly quicker, but Gugelmin now being gobbled up by third place Greg Moore.
There's Greg Moore. See, that's one of those things where you have to get far enough around that the guy acknowledges that you're there, or the spotter tells him, because his line is to go all the way out to the wall. So that's always the hair-raising part, is right on the exit. Does he see you? Is he going to leave you room?
He had to back off. Greg Moore did. So look who's taking advantage of it. Alex Zanardi. That's the problem right now. If you breathe that throttle a little bit, look out for the guys behind you. And look at Greg Moore right back around the outside. Said, hey, I'm not finished with you. Little puff of smoke.
That was from the oil side from Michael's exit.
Yep.
That shows how high he was
exactly.
Up there.
Right up there where all the dirt piles up at the foot of the concrete wall.
And now Greg Moore takes the inside line and takes second spot. And here comes Alex Zanardi as well.
Here we go.
Now if Mauricio goes Jimmy Vasser, going by both of them.
This is Vasser's bid for at least $500,000 and possibly doubling it to $1 million. Vasser moving forward. 50 laps to go, 50 miles to go. There'll be 24 laps to go as they flash across the stripe.
And let me tell you, if Mauricio Gugelmin's confident and they're just sitting back there cruising in 5th gear, he better not do it for too long.
Adrian Fernandez trying to come forward, Tommy.
Greg Moore also has drawn a bead on Paul Tracy.
Down the backstretch they go. Tracy, Moore, Vasser, Zanardi.
That high groove I talked about with Greg Moore, it paid off for the first time right there. Everybody else, nobody is able to keep full speed through the corner when they're side by side. Greg's been testing it all day, waiting for the chance to make it pay off. Nobody else has been experimenting with it. That will make or break this day for Greg Moore.
Paul Tracy on the lead, but Moore to the right of your screen, closing in.
And Jimmy Vasser right there with him.
Vasser is where he needs to be to lock up second place in the championship. Paul Tracy doing everything he can for himself, his team, and his teammate, Dario Franchitti, who watches from the pits.
Jimmy Vasser may be thinking about second in the championship, but he knows he'll clinch second in the championship if he wins the race. That's $1 million payday. That's $1.5 million for Jimmy Vasser.
And guys, when you all of a sudden see Greg Moore take a leap forward, you would assume maybe he's gone to 5th gear. We check with the team. No, they're still in 6th.
Now with Greg, think about Greg Moore also with the guy in front of him, Paul Tracy. Here comes Zanardi going back by,
putting his teammate down to 4th place.
Out of the championship runner.
No, 4th place will still do it for him, I believe.
No, that ties him in points, but the win would go to Franchitti for a better record. Remember one thing, too. These two guys are probably trying to leapfrog up to the front. They're working as a team right there. I'll pass you, you get back in line, you pass me, we'll try to pull ourselves to that lead group.
Next time by the stripe, 20 laps, 40 miles to go for $1 million here in Fontana. Once again, here comes Vasser underneath. the reigning champion Zanardi.
If they do this right, they don't slow themselves up. They actually help themselves go to the front. What they don't want to do is get fighting over that position and lose track position.
Checking the speeds, Alex Zanardi much faster that last lap.
Adrian Fernandez taking a look underneath. Zanardi, Adrian Fernandez, let's not forget, the right of your screen there, started dead last in this race.
He has been one of the fastest cars on the racetrack throughout practice this weekend. He crashed on Friday, was unable to complete his qualifying effort on Saturday, so it's been an up-and-down weekend for him, but when all four wheels were still on the car, he has been very, very quick. Have they timed it just right? We're about to find out. 19 laps to go. Up front, Paul Tracy and Greg Moore. Gary Gerald.
Bob, you were wondering a bit earlier about that rear wicker, Bill, and whether or not Paul Tracy was still running without it. They, in fact, when they trimmed the car out, they liked the way it was working. A little bit loose on one or two occasions. There's no rear wicker there. Tracy doesn't have the advantage of being able to work with a teammate. Franchitti, long ago sideline. He's doing it on his own, showing muscle. But again, the question, you guys have been debating it. Do you want to be up front? Do you want to be running second or third when we get to those final laps? Now about 18 away. Jan?
Of course, the question is, will Greg Moore try fifth gear as opposed to sixth? Remember, he was leading here last year with 10 laps to go, and the engine expired. Right now, they're saying we don't want to use fifth unless we absolutely have to, and we think right now we might not have to.
Look at this. Greg Moore is closing in on Paul Tracy. Paul Tracy wanted to trim the car out for more straight line speed. He looks like he's got it, but look how he's pulling Greg Moore right up behind him.
Greg Moore bidding to become the first driver since Rick Mears back in 1991 to win both 500-mile races in a single season.
Remember, the penalty for Paul Tracy, what it was all about was the etiquette when you're in front. What are you allowed to do? That could very well come into play here. The rules as they stand, you are allowed one move, and before this race is over, in the last 10 laps, it's kind of like anything goes. You see guys get pretty cutthroat. Watch for that. He's got that looking over his shoulder. He knows they're going to crack down on him, but there's $1 million.
They know he's already cracked down on him. He can't start Homestead next year. He'd like to go out. He's had a tough season, 10 incidents so far this season. He'd like to have a win here and put $1 million in his pocket.
When Greg Moore won that race at Michigan earlier this year, he had to battle the two Target teammates, Jimmy Vasser and Alex Zanardi, to do it. Oh, and Gilles de Ferran has motor problems.
Yellow flag will fly with an oil flag as well, or a debris flag. He gets it down out of the line, it'll bunch the field up.
So many times this year, we have said it's de Ferran with problems in the engine department. Another tough break for the Brazilian. Oil on the racetrack, the oil flag being waved from the flag stand. 15 laps remain in this race. The pits are closed for the moment. We'll take a break and return to see who pits, what gets done, and get ready, hopefully, for a shootout. $1 million at stake. Back at California Speedway and the 500. We have 14 laps remaining. We are under caution for the 8th time today after Gilles de Ferran lost an engine. Recall that at Michigan back in July, it was de Ferran who lost an engine, setting up a 6-lap dash for victory. A race eventually won by Greg Moore. Moore runs in second. Vasser and Zanardi third and fourth. Paul Tracy up front. We'll be back. Welcome back to the California Speedway as the cars swerve back and forth, cleaning their tires and collecting their thoughts. Paul Tracy in the lead over Greg Moore, Jimmy Vasser, Alex Zanardi, and Adrian Fernandez as we prepare to go green in a shootout for $1 million. There's the view from the Honda Helicam. Nobody has left. The grandstands remain on their feet. 12 laps to go next time by as the cleanup continues after Gilles de Ferran lost an engine on the backstretch, bringing out our 8th yellow flag of the day. It's amazing how ironic life can be. It was de Ferran who brought out the last yellow at Michigan earlier this summer that set up a titanic battle between many of these same players for a race win. Only now there is a new element added, and it's right there. Paul Tracy, perhaps the quickest man over a single lap in the series. Right now, he is in front.
This is going to be incredible because everybody's trying to figure out what they're doing. What we saw before this yellow was, of course, that Paul Tracy was holding his own. Greg Moore had closed up on him, But what we have also seen throughout the day is what happens at the restarts is there's a lot of action right at the start of the restart, and that could determine the outcome of this race just in that first lap or two.
And we've also heard nobody had gone to fifth gear yet. I think it's safe to say from here on out, it'll be fifth gear.
Absolutely.
And I just asked that question of Barry Green, who, of course, makes the calls for Paul Tracy. He said, we will use fifth if we're in the lead, sixth if we're not and we're in the draft.
Okay, that's just RPM. Sixth is the proper gear. It's not less aggressive, but you pull more revs. Now, one lap to green. The thing to watch coming to the green, the rules in this series are such that you're allowed to sit back a little bit. We've seen a couple slingshots already today. There'll be plenty of that gamesmanship going on, guys trying to slingshot by, because once the green comes out, no matter where you're at on the track, you're racing. And so the guy in front really needs to be on the ball and get a jump on everybody else, or he's like a sitting duck.
I like being the guy in the front. I'm going to dictate the pace, and I'm going to start where I'm going to get the jump on the field, guaranteed.
Flagman and noted motorsports artist Jim Swintow gives the signal to Paul Tracy and those behind. 1 lap to green. There will be 10 laps to go, 20 miles remaining for $1 million.
And guaranteed there will not be anybody, including in this booth, sitting down for these last 10 laps.
Now,
Absolutely.
Unlike at Indy a few years back when Scott Goodyear was black flagged for passing the pace car, the rule in kart is once the lights are out, the car might as well be invisible. It does not exist, so you cannot do it. The pace car lights are out, so now it is strictly up to Paul Tracy when he wants to go.
Right, now he has to be smart here and get the pace car at least down onto the apron. He doesn't want to jump it too soon, but look out.
Boy, the pace car left him early, and now Paul Tracy comes up on the revs. Greg Moore also, Moore closing. And now, yes, Tracy begins to draw away. He has never won a 500-mile race.
The green is out.
It's been 29 races since the last victory for Paul Tracy, and through all of the trouble, he has retained his fighting spirit. He has a shot now. Whoa, yellow back out. Car's up against the wall at the start-finish line.
Brian Herta is one of them, and it looks like an MCI car. Is that right? Is the second? I couldn't tell. It was just a blue wing.
There are the cars locked together up against the wall. Brian Herta and Max Pappas, who will be teammates in 1999 for Team Rahal.
Well, maybe this is just how they're getting acquainted right here. This is the beginning of a friendly relationship for two teammates.
Well, they were
Herta's
both running
climbing out.
They were running at the back without a realistic shot at the win.
Yeah, but you certainly don't want to end your day like that.
After 3 hours and 5 minutes of hard work.
Max is pretty still in there.
As always, when the driver remains in the car, the kart safety team sprawls across the front of the monocoque to get the visor up and have a look inside.
Max might be gathering his thoughts to tell Bobby Rahal what he did here.
Steam from the punctured radiators. Brian Herta climbs into the safety vehicle with a look over at Max Pappas's car.
Head there.
Pappas stirring. You see the debris out there. There are 9 laps to go. This will have to be a quick cleanup. Those are the pieces of Pappas's car. The MCI WorldCom signage lying on the racetrack, and look at the grinding along the wall as the rubber was rubbed off of the wheels. We'll take a break and return for the dramatic final chapter to today's story. Stay with us.
Racetrack back to the sanctuary of his pits. Coming down for that restart, Brian, tell us what happened.
I'm not really sure. I think that Max was on the outside of me and we touched. I didn't even know he was there. And if that was the case, then it was my fault, and I feel bad about it because you know, obviously took us out of the race, took him out of the race, and that's a bad deal. But you know, if that's not what happened, then something broke because the car turned sideways in a big hurry.
Do you like racing with this Hanford device and the type of close quarter action it's provided us at Michigan and here again at California?
I liked it better in the second half of the race when we got the car working. It was a little scary at first for me anyways because my car wasn't very good in the beginning of the race, but we made it pretty good there at the end, and I was really starting to have some fun with it, and you know, that's kind of a tough way to end the season.
Happy you're all right.
Well, thank you, me too.
Jan?
And Max Pappas has climbed from his car as well. And Max, Brian said he's not sure what happened. How did it unfold from your seat?
I think he didn't see. I was just right there on the outside, and he just squeezed me in the wall. Possibly didn't see, but I was completely on this outside, and he just moved towards the wall. I guess he didn't see.
What he said was he did not see you coming, and if you were on the outside of him, it was his fault, and he apologized.
It's okay, you know, he's gonna be my teammate next year, but you know, it's fine. I wanted to finish my last race for MCI Toyota in a good way, and it's gonna be for next year.
All right, thank you, Max. Thank you.
Well, a good thing there, nobody hurt. Two teammates looking forward to working together next year for Bobby Rahal, who remains in the race, by the way. Rahal running a lap down in 12th place in his final appearance here
and
as
what
a driver.
an enthusiastic crowd. These crowds yelling, get off the track, get these safety guys out, get that junk out of there. We want to go racing. They want to see what everybody wants to see, which is that dash for the cash.
A little bit of cleanup still to be done by the kart safety team. We have a couple of departing champions this year. As that part of our story comes to a close, let's review their glittering performance in the series. Back live at California Speedway, where we began the day with a package that would have honored our winner at the rate of $4,000 per lap. Well, it has come down to this. 1 lap to go, and when we go green, it will be 4 laps. Call it 4 laps at $250,000 apiece. $1 million will go to one of these drivers. Paul Tracy out in front of Greg Moore, Jimmy Vasser, Alex Zanardi, Adrian Fernandez, Mauricio Gugelmin, and Christian Fittipaldi.
And let's not forget of another battle that's in there. Jimmy Vasser in third right now would clinch second, but 2 spots back is Adrian Fernandez, who started on the last row here. He's still in that battle for second as well.
It just does not come easy in this series.
There's so much going on, and for those 2 guys, that's about $1.5 million win for each one of those guys.
Talk about orders. Chip Ganassi on the radio to Alex Zanardi. Basically, the conversation went something like this. If you think you can win it, go for it. Whatever you do, make sure Jimmy's in the top 3. They've got to keep Adrian Fernandez out of that mix on the podium.
And Gary, on the radio to Paul Tracy, Barry Green says, come on, we need a perfect restart and then just 4 perfect laps.
Well, he's already restarted on the back straightaway.
The pace car is long gone, and Paul Tracy is hard on the gas with Greg Moore, Jimmy Vasser, Alex Zanardi behind him doing likewise. The field is ready to go green.
Yellow flag, yellow waving.
Yellow
What
flag out
happened
from
to Paul
the flag.
Tracy?
Where is Paul? Paul Tracy spun on the backside.
No way. Oh, Paul.
Is this possible?
Oh my gosh, he tried so hard. He started coming out of turn 2. The tires must have been too cool. Unbelievable.
Here's a replay.
Now he's coming out of turn 2, stands on the gas, and just turns it sideways and smacks it up against the fence and hands it.
Down in the pit lane, what were those words from Barry Green just before the pace car took off?
And Bob, you know what he just said now? He said, Paul, that just sums up our season.
Well, I would have to agree with Barry Green. What a bitter heartbreak for Paul Tracy and for that man, Barry Green, and his team. So much triumph and so much trouble. And so Paul Tracy will not win his first 500-mile race and $1 million here today. Back to Jan Bikas.
Well, Barry Green, what a tough break. I mean, did you ever think, I know you were telling him to get charged up, get a good restart, but I guess the tires were still cold?
Well, I mean, I obviously don't know what happened. It was all going to come down to the restart, and he drove such a perfect race all day, and just 4 laps to go, and I think he could have held him off that close to $1 million. But I guess that just sums up our season. You know, he's had a rough season, but I tell you what, he's a hell of a racer. He'll be back really strong next year. We'll be back real strong next year. So
now, what are you going to do in a situation where you're not even sure? I mean, he's been banned from the first race of the season. How can you get him pumped up for a whole new season?
We'll be back next year. We'll be real strong. This kid is very, very good. Dario Franchitti is very, very good. The team is excellent right now. We'll be back with a big punch next year.
Thanks, Barry.
Well, of course, the question is for a lot of people out there, how can you do that? Well, let me tell you, Paul just goes and he picked up too much throttle. We've seen a lot of greats do it over the years. Tom Sneva comes to mind. Guerrero, he just got it too much. The tires are a little cold. You got all that stagger in there, and he just turned them a little sideways. That's all she wrote.
To explain what the stagger does, the stagger, to help the car turn, you end up having the bigger right rear tire, and at slower speeds, it's more pronounced.
Here we go. 1 lap to green. We will have Greg Moore, Jimmy Vasser, and Alex Zanardi, just as it was at Michigan, but this time it will be 1 green flag lap for $1 million.
And let's not forget, let's put Adrian Fernandez into that picture. He is right behind you. Just see his nose come right there into the screen. He is in 4th spot. He is battling for 2nd in that championship.
Once again, Margie Eatwell pulls away in the Toyota Solara safety car, and now it will be up to Greg Moore to restart this race. 2 miles, $1 million. Look at how slowly.
You run the same risk as slow as they're going right now. Same thing.
Don't jump on that power.
Believe me, they've got their foot on the brake right now, and one on the gas, trying to hold it down there and spool it up. You saw Zanardi's car on the outside get a little twitch.
Here we go.
By going now, see, the green isn't out yet, so they cannot pass him, even if they have a run on him. So by going early, he's able to build ahead of steam. The starter still hasn't displayed the green flag.
Now the green is out. Let's see if any of them time it. Vasser's making a bid. Vasser takes the lead. Green on right side. Zanardi almost touches wheels with Moore. The 2 Target teammates are 1st and 2nd.
And you saw Zanardi had to lift off a little bit when he went into 1, held up more a little bit, gave that Jimmy that little break. That might be enough.
Here comes Moore. Here comes Moore. Zanardi low, Moore up high.
And this is helping Jimmy Vasser get away.
No,
These guys are battling.
No, Vasser's out in front by about 5 car lengths. They come off the turn now. Can he hold on? Can he hold on for $1 million? Yes, Jimmy Vasser with his 5th in the air wins $1 million at the 500.
$1.5 million at the flag. That was for 2nd in the championship. $1.5 million for Jimmy Vasser.
Oh my! Look at the crew. And with that, Jimmy Vasser no doubt leaps right to the top of the money charts in 1998. Alex Zanardi clapping as well. Jimmy Vasser's making a habit of this. He won $1 million at the first U.S. 500 at Michigan back in '96. There is Chip Ganassi hugging his father, Floyd.
Barry Sheen comes into the picture.
500cc world champion in motorcycle racing. What a season. And there is Vasser. Icy cool when he needed to be. Timed the green flag perfectly. Swooped past leader Greg Moore and never looked back. Astonishing finish to an amazing day of racing here in California. The unofficial finishing order: Vasser, Moore, Zanardi, Fernandez, Gugelmin, Blundell, Fittipaldi, Hearn, Gordon, and Helio Castroneves, the highest ranking rookie. What do you think, Jimmy? He's not going to try a donut, is he?
I don't think with all those people. I think that little smoke coming off was just a little burnout.
Oh, my heart. Crews swarming onto the racetrack now. Victory Lane right across the pit straight. And now Jimmy Vasser heads back out. I guess he'll make a lap and come back in to park at Victory Lane. What a day for Jimmy Vasser and that bulletproof Target Chip Ganassi racing team. You could argue that Vassar spent much of his season, the last 2 years, racing in the shadow of his teammate Alex Zanardi, who will now move on to rejoin the Formula One series. Well, Jimmy Vassar has a new 3-year contract and will be back next year to try to reclaim the title he took 3 years ago.
And he gets to carry something else that I always enjoyed. He's the last winner of the season, and he gets to carry that all the way through till the first race at Fontana.
If you're tuning in for Sports Center, it'll be coming up next, but you couldn't have asked for a more dramatic moment as Jimmy Vassar raced 1 lap for $1 million, came from second, timed the restart perfectly, and collects not only that $1 million, but nails down second place in the FedEx Championship for an extra $500,000 on top of the rest of the winnings he already has in 1998. And that fist hasn't stopped pumping for the last 5 miles.
The pandemonium that you would expect. The Target team is here to swoop up their driver as he comes crawling out of the cockpit. Embraces, pump fists, high fives, shouts of praise, admiration, more hugs, you name it. That's what the big bucks do. And what a payday for Jimmy Vassar. Not only the $1 million, of course, for the win, he's clinched second place in the points, another $500,000 on top of that, and now the elation shows all the way around. Jimmy, tell me about those last couple of restarts, and of course, what were you thinking when you saw Paul Tracy's problem on the backstretch?
You know, I felt my car got a little loose a couple starts, and you know, it was easy to do. I felt bad for Paul, but you know, we had a great car from the second half of the race on in, and my guys did a great job in the pits all day. I screwed up and overshot the last one and put us back a bit, but second in the championship with the win, this is fantastic.
And of course, the same principles. You were all involved, the same threesome at Michigan. Tell us now the difference between here and what happened the end of July in Michigan, when I know you were so bitterly disappointed because that one got away from you.
Well, there's just nothing you can do, you know. I mean, Greg knows. I mean, a guy gets a run on you. Greg's been in the other seat, and this time there's nothing he could have done. You know, it's just the nature of the wing that we have now, and the car was working great. I got a good start. It's fantastic.
Let the party begin. It's underway in earnest here in the Vassar camp. Jan Beekes?
Well, of course, there's some celebration down here for Bobby Rahal as well, but not quite the same as Jimmy Vassar with a fantastic finish and $1 million. But you had a fantastic season, a fantastic career, and the whole year was built up to this. And are you satisfied with your final ride?
I think it's been a very good year for us. I naturally hoped to have won a race, but we've been competitive pretty much all year. You know, missed a few. Elkhart Lake was looking good, and Long Beach, and just, you know, couldn't quite get it all going together. But the speed was there, and that's what I wanted. I wanted to make sure that people remembered me as being competitive in my last year. And you know, today things were looking good in the first half of the race, and then the car went real loose, and we were struggling, trying to get the looseness out of it, and we just slowed it up as a result. But we made it, and yeah, Jimmy's got $1 million, but I got a lot more than that, memories and everything else.
And those memories, are you looking forward to being a team owner?
I am. I'm very excited about that. You know, I think it's great. I think we're going to have a great combination next year, irrespective of what happened today. And, you know, with Brian and Max, I think we have two guys whose focus is 100% on racing, and that's what this team needs to win in terms of drivers. And now I can focus 100% on the business side.
Thanks for all the memories.
Thank you, Jan.
Well put, Jan. Thanks, Bobby, for all the memories. And today was surely one of those, an astonishing conclusion to the 1998 season. We want to thank our entire crew. We don't hand out accolades often, but these men and women are the best in the business, and I speak for all of the announcers when I say I'll go into battle with them anytime. Thanks for being with us. A great day for Jimmy Vassar, for Target Chip Ganassi Racing, for Bobby Rahal, for Alex Zanardi, and for every driver up and down the pit lane. Jimmy Vassar, the winner over Greg Moore, Alex Zanardi, Adrian Fernandez, Mauricio Gugelmin. You'll see it in the papers tomorrow, but if your friends weren't watching, you can tell them what they missed. I'm Bob Varsha for Danny Sullivan, Tommy Kendall, Gary Gerald, and Jan Beekes. Thanks for being with us all season long. So long from Fontana. This has been a production of ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports.